Hi, I'm Karlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Karlin Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, karlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. What up, everyone? Happy Friday. We made it. We made it through another week, and now it's time for happy hour. Happy hour, of course, is a time where we watch woke training like we do every day on this channel, but we do it a little bit differently on Fridays because on Fridays we have beer. And if you have something fun, let us know what you're drinking in the chat. But I have just returned from the craft beer store where I gotta say, like, my journeys to the craft beer store lately, at least the one that's like right down the road from me, have been a little bit disappointing because I feel like they're not, like, I'm not seeing anything new that I don't see every single time I go there, which is a little bit weird because usually beer changes seasonally and all that stuff. But I did manage to find some beers, and I like to get beers that, like, I like to get different beers each week. Sometimes I repeat a beer, but really, like, not that often because you guys like it when I do different beers, and so it's getting a little hard. And I am absolutely not going to break down and start drinking IPAs because IPAs suck. IPAs are pissing contests for men to see how bitter they can go in a beer that no one actually wants to drink. Anyway, what are we doing while we drink this beer? Well, we are going to be watching today. We've got the trifecta today, guys. We've got the trifecta. We've got We've got abortion, we've got black, and we have queer. The trifecta: reproductive justice, black feminists probably, and queer liberation, all rolled in neatly to one presentation. And this presentation is brought to us on the YouTube channel just 7 days ago with 32 views of the Abortion Fund of Ohio. What is the Abortion Fund of Ohio, you ask? Abortion Fund of Ohio is Ohio's statewide abortion fund. Founded in 1992, we are an organization dedicated to helping Ohioans afford their reproductive choices. We believe that everyone should be able to make their own reproductive decisions, and we will work to make that a reality in Ohio. We are a founding member of the National Network of Abortion Funds, which includes more than 100 abortion funds across the United States and overseas. We provide financial assistance and practical support, transportation, housing, and more to help patients afford contraception, emergency contraception, and abortion services. We distribute funds to clinics throughout Ohio. These clinics, in turn, use the funds to provide financial assistance to those in need. So essentially, anytime you see something called an abortion fund, that's a socialist initiative to pay for people's abortions. And they have these things all over the country. And these are the organizations the idea of like mutual aid, very big among the left, because they believe that people are oppressed, right? Especially like black people, queer people, et cetera, et cetera. And so what they do is they start these like mutual aid organizations to fund whatever nonsense they want. So if someone wants an abortion and they can't afford it, well, they go to one of these places and they just pay for everything. Now, think about the opposition to that on the conservative right. And I've seen these charities that and I know I applaud, I guess, the initiative, but there are some like nonprofits on the conservative right where they will basically, because they don't want women to have abortions, they'll pay their expenses not to have an abortion. But usually it's my understanding that those nonprofits on the right basically shell out maybe a couple $1,000s and then they leave the rest up to the woman who was probably going to have an abortion because she couldn't financially afford the baby, which means it's like, it's nice, don't get me wrong, but it's actually not as much help as you might think, because the left has these types of organizations all over the country that will just pay for the damn abortion and drive you to the abortion and take care of you and buy you whatever you need around the abortion. And that's going to be much more affordable for a lot of people than taking the couple $1,000s max of charity that they get from these organizations on the right and then having a kid. And of course, the right doesn't want to grapple with this because they don't pay attention to what the left is doing. And then they wonder why it doesn't work. Anyway, we're going to be watching this presentation today. It is called Abortion and Black Queer Liberation. And it doesn't really have much of a description other than check out this recording of the Abortion Fund of Ohio's workshop, Abortion and Black Queer Liberation. This workshop was developed and hosted by an intern and Oberlin College student, Lotus Lloyd. And Lotus is a he, him. Not what I expected, but okay, a he, him. Talking about abortion and black queer liberation. That's what we're going to be watching today, guys, for happy hour. I hope you're ready. Please mount the like button for me. And please, if you're drinking something fun for happy hour, let us know in the chat what you're drinking. If you're not drinking something fun, you grab a coffee or a tea or a water or any of those other things. Let me just get the Rumble chat out. But before we get into it, just a couple of quick things. Number one, I know the content has been light this week on the Substack because I'm working on something. I'm actually working on like a dictionary. I've been promising to do the socialist dictionary for a while, and I've been working on building out just like all these images that I'm going to be putting in, like basically images that you guys can use to like show people like the meanings of all the words that we find over and over and over again. I'm going to be posting something later tonight on the Substack, like fingers crossed. I thought I was going to get up last night, but tonight might have to be the night. And so make sure you're subscribed to the Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Be the first to know when I do get that dictionary up later tonight. If you've been following me on Twitter at Dr. Carlin B, and there should be a link in the description somewhere to my Twitter if you aren't following me on there, you've already started to see some of the images because I've been posting them on social media. This is something I want to like. One of the ideas that I have that I want to do is develop like we're doing some fun propaganda projects in my supporter Discord led by Honest Dog Allison, bots participating, Gayla's participating. There's a whole group of people doing propaganda. And so what we're going to be doing is like making kind of like cool graphics and zines and things people can download and share to help like spread the word and teach people about the language of the left, because God knows no one else is doing it. So we got to do it ourselves. If there is anything we learned this week, it's that even the people that you think understand don't really understand and quite frankly don't really care, and it's all a grift for most people and yada yada yada. And so the takeaway from that is not that we should be upset, it's not that we should be depressed. Okay, we can be depressed for a minute, just it's like you're allowed to be upset for a minute, but then you have to regroup and you have to say, all right, well, what are we doing with this particular situation? And so the only answer that I have is that we've got to come up with creative ways to get around the do nothing conservative shills that are fucking everything up. And we just got to reach normal people, and I think we can reach normal people by doing things in cool and fun and interesting ways that are taking some of the strategies of the left and then using them against them. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be posting one of my efforts that it's not going to be done tonight, but it's going to be in a pretty good place to at least launch it and get some stuff out there that people can use. Actually, flashcards is something that I do have on my list. It is. I like have a flashcard program and all this stuff, and so that is actually something I do want to do. I will also be launching another level of the how to speak socialist training. So we've got the level 1 training. I'm going to be going deeper into queer theory for the next one. I think I'm going to launch that for next month after I do my undercover thing. That I'm not going to talk anymore about right now. Anyway, we've got some cool stuff coming is what I'm saying. There's a reason that I haven't been posting content, because I've been taking that time that I would use to write the content and actually doing other stuff behind the scenes. So I hope you guys will just trust me on that one and know that I am working hard over here. It's just like some of this stuff takes a little bit longer to develop than you like writing an article or something like that would usually take me. So the dictionary will be going up, at least the first iteration of the dictionary, on the Substack later tonight. Make sure you are subscribed. And if you do want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, because I am 100% entirely funded by you, please sign up for a subscription for $8 a month or $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. You guys fund everything that I'm doing. I am not beholden to any political interest. My only job is to tell you the truth and to show you what's going on and to let you decide for yourself what you think about it. I do want to acknowledge Trendolin. There's a typo in my name, Trendle, and that's all right. I understand the struggle is real. Thank you for struggling through the Whatever podcast with us last night. I appreciate it. I won't make you watch the Whatever podcast ever again. Thank you, Trendolin. I'm never watching the Whatever podcast again. I appreciate Trendolin. She's a smart lady. I like her a lot. But if I ever have to sit through another episode of the Whatever podcast, we're breaking up, Trendolin. I swear to God. Like, I'm not doing I can only go so far. All right. Taking in with the super chat, it would be mega helpful to have the activist names next to the definitions well, no, I don't think that would be helpful, Taten, because it would be confusing to people who don't know who they are. So I think that would be more confusing than it would be helpful. But if you want to try that, if you want to make images, if you want to try to make like propaganda or get involved with the zine project, because you're a supporter, you can go into the supporters the supporter Discord and get involved with the zine project. I would welcome you to do that. So, but I'm not going to do it because I don't think it's a good idea. But that doesn't mean you can't do it, bro. Like, I'm not going to be the bottleneck for this stuff. If you've got an idea and you want to play around with it, go do it. I'm more than happy to get whatever advice, and I will promote whatever you guys do. I mean, Tate, and you definitely know how to get my attention. You tag me and stuff all the time. So I would say do it. I would say do it. Josh said the price was worth the Substack was worth the year price in the first month. Thank you, Josh, for that. I do try to provide you guys with a lot of value and perks and all of that stuff. Another way you can support the work I'm doing is by heading over to the Unwoke Art store. And of course, we do have an amazing new product in the Unwoke Art store. We have got, at long last, thanks to Bot, because I didn't design this one, Bot did, and then she gave it to me and told me I could use it. We at long last have got the 4 goals of the woke left design. You guys had been asking me for this design for a long time. I didn't know how to do it because it's just a lot of words and I wasn't sure what the concept would be. And so I always had it in the back of my head, and then Bot came through and made this amazing piece of propaganda. And I said, Bot, you need to put that on a t-shirt like stat. And Bot said, I don't want to. You can do it. here's the file. And I was like, are you sure? And she said, yes. And I was like, all right. And so now we have that in the Unwoke Art Store. We have the special discount for the rest of the month of February. You can get everything with this design on it for 25% off. So we've got t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies. We've got a zip hoodie. This is the same hoodie that I'm wearing, with it has on the front the Unwoke Art logo on the side of the zipper. Bing. Just like that. And then on the back it has the design, and I love this hoodie. I mean, you guys see me wear this hoodie on stream. I'm going to be getting another one of these. My hoodie doesn't have this on the back. It has a different design on the back, but I'm going to be getting one of these just because I think that that's really cool. We've got sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts, bags. We've even got a pint glass for our happy hours, of course. And of course, you can also get the posters. The posters, actually, a lot of people have been buying the posters. You can get an unframed poster or a nice framed poster. There you go. Comes all ready for you to hang it on the wall. Look at that. Look at that. Excellent work, bot. Excellent piece of propaganda. And you can get all those designs in the Unwoke Art Store for 25% off for the rest of the month only. And then they're going back up to normal price. So if you like it, this will probably be the only time, at least until Christmas, that you'll be able to get this for 25% off. So, pick it up, man. Pick it up. It's a good product. All right. The last thing we have to do before we get started is I need a beer, because it has been one of those weeks. So what I have is 4 beers, because I just got back from the craft beer store. I'm going to tell you about the beers, and then you guys get to pick out which beer I drink first. The first one is hang on, my microphone just hit one of the beers. The first one is a very bright and pretty can. And you guys know I'm a sucker for a good beer can. And this one is obviously very girly and watercolory. And, hang on. Tayton says, so I should make a dystopian AI art that looks like Sophie Lewis with all the children around her. I mean, if you want to, Tayton, I don't think that Sophie needs to be the center of everything we do with Abolish the Family. But if you want to play around with that, go to it. Why not? I think it's a great idea. I appreciate the super chat. All right. So the first one we have is from Barreled Souls Brewing, and this is from Saco, Maine, and it is called Peaches Come in a Can. Now, I'm normally not actually a fan of peach, but this one actually sounds okay. This is a sour ale with peach, vanilla, and graham cracker. It's 6% alcohol. So Peaches Come in a Can is going to be our first one. Our second one is obviously designed by a man. This is a man beer can. This is not a girl beer can. This is a man beer can. And this is from Kings County Brewers Collective. Oh, it's a collective. Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, no. It's a socialist brewery. Oh, no. Now I'm disappointed and I don't want to drink this. I mean, I'm still going to drink it. I already bought it. But this is from oh, God. I'm going to be paying attention to any collective breweries from now on when I buy beer. This is a sour ale with blueberry, passion fruit, and lemon, and barley wheat, and it's 5.5% alcohol. I know, I fucked up. All right, I didn't see it said collective on the can when I bought it. I was too distracted by the snake. Whatever. Our next beer is one I think I've bought this one before, but I think Victor drank it before I got to try it. So this is from, let's see, 10 Ben's Beer. Where are they out of? Vermont. Another communist beer, obviously, Vermont beer. But this is a coconut stout, and I really like coconut stouts. And it's got lactose, coconut, and vanilla. So that's going to be our third option. And then our last option, and I'm really excited about this one. I do these Twitter spaces with the Waffle Temple on Twitter. And so I found the official Waffle Temple beer. This is from Kettlehead Brewing, and I'm pretty sure they're in Maine. Are you in Maine, Kettlehead? Are you in Maine? Where are you? Oh, no, I'm sorry. New Hampshire. New Hampshire beer. Yay. And this is called Vanilla Tooth Waffle Party. And this is an Imperial. What is the alcohol content? Let's see. Oh, it says it's a malt beverage. Holy shit. Looks like 8% alcohol. Not even a beer. But I'm still going to drink it anyway. It is an Imperial Stout with, I guess, vanilla and waffle. I don't know what that means, but that's our options. So, guys, I'm going to put the poll in the chat on YouTube. There we go. Again, we have peaches come in a can. We have blueberry, lemony, sour socialist beer. We have coconut stout, or we have the waffle beer. And I bet I know which one is going to win. It's probably going to be the waffle beer, but you guys can vote for whatever you want. In the meantime, let me get the sound set up for our Black queer abortion presentation. I hope you guys are all having a good day. It has just been another weird week for me. Another weird week. Whatever. All right, let's see what is winning the poll. All right, last chance to vote. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Actually, that was dangerously close. A lot of you voted for the socialist beer. But the waffle beer did win, so that's the one I'm going to be drinking. Let's see. Let's see. It didn't explode on me, so that's a good first step. There we go. And again, guys, happy Friday. Good to make it through another week. Tomorrow, we're going to be watching a queer Marxist presentation for Socialism Saturday at 6 p.m. And it's going to be one that we've actually already seen before, but I want to rewatch it. I'm a little annoyed where it doesn't have any head. It doesn't, that's a little concerning. It doesn't have any head. Well, let's just see. It's very thick. It tastes like maple syrup. No joke. It's not as thick as maple syrup, but it definitely tastes like maple syrup. Definitely. All right. Well, that's a good way to get started. All right. We are going to learn about abortion and Black queer liberation. If you have questions about what anything means, please be sure to chat them in. Let's get this party started.
Okay. Woo. Hi. Welcome. As we begin, I'm going to ask you all, if you have the ability, grab a journal, maybe a piece of paper, and a pen. Also, hello again. Welcome to Abortion and Black Queer Liberation, a workshop on how abortion and reproductive justice are an essential part of Black liberation. Let's go. Space access and engagement. So we have live ASL interpretation on this call and automated captions. Hopefully you can see at least our interpreter right below me, or maybe to the side of me, depending on your Zoom setup. Yeah, so if you need captions, there's a button that should say either show captions, or maybe it might be in the more section. You can click that and it should be able to just show you what I'm saying. We're also dropping a file with a rough transcripts and slides so that people can catch up. So sorry about not having live captioning services, but we're trying to adapt. An edited recording will be available tomorrow with up-to-date captions. Please, if you have any access issues, please flag them in the chat publicly, or to Sierra specifically. Let's say you like interpretation, you can't see it, captions aren't working, you want me to slow down, all of that, message Sierra or message the chat. We're also going to be using the Q&A buttons to ask questions. So maybe at the bottom of your screen, you might see the button that says Q&A. If you have a question, please type it out there and either I or Sierra will be able to answer that. We're gonna pause for Q&A at the end of each section. But yeah, you can feel free to drop questions at any time. Also, please use the chat and reactions to engage with folks, share resources. Fair warning, got to give this disclaimer.
I'm not sure if they're the
Don't
only
be rude
speaker.
or
I think there might be
disrespectful
more
to
than
me
one.
or any speakers
Actually,
that
no,
we
you're
have
probably
in the
right
chat
there.
or Q&A. Trying to get
it
a
was made by
reaction
the
out of me
interns.
or
So you're
anyone
probably
here
right.
will not work. You're simply going to be kicked from the call. If the chat gets bad, it can always be turned off. So keep that in mind.
Oh, this is going to be good.
So hi, I'm Lotus.
He, him.
I am a Black trans guy, a college student, an intern at the Abortion Fund of Ohio. I'm so excited to be here with y'all today. I have a prompt for you all. I see a lot of you have seen it, gotten it. If you feel comfortable sharing, you can say your name, your pronouns, any organizational affiliation you might have.
So because there's only one presenter, I think Rottweiler had a good idea. Like if you think this person is going to say capitalism during the presentation, let us know around what time mark. This presentation is an hour and 20 minutes long. So let us know when you think capitalism is going to pop up, or you could vote that this person is not going to say capitalism. Either's fine.
And your favorite snack. That one's actually the most important one. Yeah.
Feel free to put your favorite snack in the chat if you have a favorite snack.
About
My
the
favorite
Abortion
snack is
Fund of
Blue
Ohio.
Toffees.
So if this is your first AFO
I haven't had it in
event,
a long time, but they're
welcome.
really good.
Second off, here's a little introduction to who we are, what we do here. AFO started in 1992 as Women Have Options and Abortion Fund, and it also had a connected transportation to abortion services service.
Coffee shake. Coffee
About
shake
a
is a
year
good snack.
after the Abortion Fund was founded, it's and 21 other regional abortion funds came together to form the National Network of Abortion Funds, or NAF, as I'll be referring to it today. Today, the NAF, or the National Network of Abortion Funds, consists of over 100 independent abortion funds from across the U.S. We'll hear some more from folks at the NAF later. In 2022, Women Have Options changed its name from that to Abortion Fund of Ohio in order to reflect the wide range of people who have abortions and deserve access to abortions. As for the services that AFO offers, there's direct aid, funding for abortion care, as well as practical support funds for things like childcare and transportation. There's also judicial bypass support, which is helping minors who want to access abortion services. There's also distributing emergency contraception, free Plan B, free condoms, free lube, all of it. We also hold events like this, trainings, tabling, and we also work to bust abortion stigma. As you can see, as you might be able to see on the screen, in 2023, we raised over $1 million in direct abortion funding. And so that's just amazing. Yeah. Okay, so before we get into this workshop, we're going to be talking about some of the content that's here. This workshop talks about the history and legacies of oppression. So we will be talking about real harm that has happened and is happening to Black and Indigenous, queer and trans people. So many parts here have the potential to be triggering. Everything really awful is talked about super briefly, but be aware things could be triggering. Please take care of yourself however you need to. This is a Zoom call, so it's easier to just turn off the sound, grab a snack, leave the call, do something else for a few seconds. Whatever you need to do, no judgment. General warnings for American history of oppression, enslavement, eugenics and genocide, harm to queer and trans, Black and Indigenous folks, miscarriage and pregnancy loss, anti-Black violence, misogyny, transphobia, policing.
Oh, we're talking about a lot. Policing?
Violence.
Oh, this is going to be great.
Disclaimer.
We're getting all the good stuff today.
And a final set of disclaimers. This workshop is not medical advice. It won't be providing medical advice. It's also not providing legal advice. We will discuss current historical methods of inducing abortion. This is not an endorsement of those methods, nor is it a condemnation. We do, in general, endorse abortion.
We do, in general, endorse
and when
abortion.
And why you get an abortion should be up to you. So keep that in mind. Woohoo! Okay, table of contents. On the agenda today, right now, we have introduced the space. We're going to get into a Black history of abortion in the United States. Then we're going to talk about getting free, the road to reproductive justice, which is going to be talking more about Black feminism and its relationship to queer liberation struggle. And then finally, we're going to talk about practical ways that you can get involved, creating the future that we know is going to happen for Black queer folks accessing abortion. And yeah. Abortion and terminology. I'm gonna wait a second.
Not all people who have abortions are women. And not all women can become pregnant.
We're ready.
Okay, great. Intentional language. So if you're here, you're most likely familiar with abortion on some level, but for some clarity, here's a definition. Here, abortion is defined as when a pregnancy is intentionally ended through some means. If you're thinking, who can have abortions? The answer is many people. If a person has a uterus with eggs, more than likely that person can become pregnant and have an abortion. So that includes many cisgender women, many trans men, many.
Why do they start off this presentation about abortion by saying that not all people who have abortions are women and not all women can become pregnant? Why are they doing that? Explain, please. Pop quiz. Why is this the very first thing that we're hearing in the abortion presentation? Not everyone who has an abortion is a woman, and not all women can get pregnant. Because this isn't really about abortion, this is about abolishing the gender binary. It's about abolishing gender because this person is a queer activist. The goal is to abolish the gender binary, and this is something that I understand the pro-lifers are going to get distracted on this issue, but you have to understand that the way the left is using abortion, it's not so much that they care about murdering their babies. That's a stupid talking point. It's that they care about abolishing the gender binary. Well, no, this is not correct. No, wrong. This is a conservative talking point that is not grounded in reality at all. The goal is to get rid of the gender binary. They seek to abolish the gender binary. Follow-up question, because most people are getting this one, at least the ones that are participating in the chat. Why do they want to abolish the why is abortion a way of abolishing the gender binary? Why does the left believe that abortion, which they call reproductive justice most of the time, why do they believe that reproductive justice is a way of abolishing the gender binary? Because abortion liberates women from being mothers. Exactly. Exactly. Kate asks, why do they want to abolish the gender binary? Because have you guys heard the term gender equity? So they believe that gender equity will only be achieved when the gender binary is abolished, because they believe that capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership, created the gender binary, which is men and women, and it put men in positions of power in the workforce, and it put women in the home doing the unpaid labor of raising the next generation of proletarian workers. And so the only way to liberate women from the gender binary is to abolish women altogether and to abolish men altogether. And by abolishing both women and men, we will achieve gender equity because everyone will be the same. Let's see. Abolishing the gender binary also abolishes the nuclear family, which reproduces culture, which reproduces capitalism. Correct. I don't think this is the reason they do it, Brooks. I think this is just like a side effect of it, but I don't think it's the primary reason, but I do understand why you offered that. Abortion frees women from the gender binary. That's how these things are related. No, it doesn't. Not really. This isn't really correct. That's not something we've ever heard them say. Let's see. Bro, you're either here to learn or you're not, or you're here to fuck around. These are not correct answers that you're giving. I'm sorry. It's not about abortion at all. Abortion liberates female body people from the unpaid work of bearing and bringing up the children. Yup, that's a good answer. Because women birth the proletariat workers that support capitalism. Yup. It disrupts the nuclear family by getting rid of gender roles that enforce and promote capitalism and oppression, the ultimate goal of equity. Good answer. Good answer, Lone. Appreciate it. Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah, basically. There's some Stalin, there's some Mao, there's some Trotsky, there's a lot of Marx, there's Lenin. It's all mixed up in a nice little package for us. Okay, bro, this is your third bad answer, and I'm starting to think you're trolling my chat. If you troll my chat, you're not going to be here for very long. You're either here to learn or you're here to be a jackass, and jackasses don't tend to last very long. You're welcome to ask questions if you don't understand, but this garbage is not acceptable. Sorry.
Non-binary people and many intersex people. There are many types of abortion, and we're going to talk about some of them, but one thing that will come up a few times is self-managed abortion.
Self-managed abortion,
What is
the
considered self-managed
abortion
abortion
pill.
varies, but for this workshop, it means abortion services accessed outside of
It
a
means an
clinic or
at-home
hospital.
bathroom abortion.
Often people are referring to taking something like the abortion pill at home without the help of a doctor. But when talking about Black history, we're going to be talking about a wide range of ways people accessed abortion before medical services and when medical services were inaccessible. We'll also be talking about abortive fashions and contraceptives. To keep things simple,
Yes, Bob,
abortive
very good. That's
fashions
the
are
abortion pill.
substances which induce abortion. These include things like the abortion pill, but also include things like herbs, for instance. There are also contraceptives, which are things that prevent pregnancy, like condoms or birth control. We're not going to get too caught in the weeds with what is and what's not, but when we're talking about the history of these things, know that the line between what was an abortifacient and what was a contraceptive was much blurrier than it is today. And we're going to be talking about reproductive health and reproductive violence. That impacts all people regardless
I
of
think that's
anatomy.
way overthinking it, Dayton. Way
Reproductive health refers
overthinking
to
it.
the physical, mental, and social well-being of things relating to reproductive organs, pregnancy, STI care, hormone health, sex and sexuality, family planning, abortion access, all of it, and so much more. Based on that, reproductive violence here is interpersonal or governmental violence that limits a person's reproductive autonomy or coerces them into making choices that they don't want to make. Something like that will come up quite a bit. Gendered language. So we know that when looking at the history of Black folks and Indigenous folks, we know that so many peoples were forced into this strict gender.
When looking at history, Black and Indigenous people have often been forced into a gender binary, e.g., enslaved folks experiencing gender coercion.
Binary. With the experiences of enslaved people in particular, it was financially really important to ensure that
I'm
people
sorry, I'm
with
turning the
certain
captions off. They're
characteristics
taking
were
up the whole
characterized
screen.
as women, and others that had different characteristics were characterized as men. Those who didn't fit in for a variety of reasons
The
were often met with
colonial, hang on.
violence and denial.
Look at the language. The colonial gender binary. What do they mean when they say the colonial gender binary? Oh, you just got blocked, bro. Congratulations. Guys, I have two rules in my chat. Number one, don't be a dick. This person is being a dick. Number two, no whining. If I ask you to stop doing something, just stop doing it. This person has now broken rule number two, which is no whining. So this person will be removed. Goodbye. It's not hard, guys. You're either here to learn or you're here to be a jackass. Jackasses don't last long. The gender binary was imposed by the colonizers, i.e. the capitalists. Capitalist invented the gender binary. Yup. Anytime you see colonization or colonialism, that means capitalism. The gender binary is, well, not enforced by, well, I guess it is enforced, but it was also created by capitalism. The white capitalist settler, yup. The capitalist construct of gender, exactly.
All that in mind, I just try to be as specific as possible with my language. When I mean people who were coercively identified as women, I'll say people identified as women. Sometimes I'll talk about women's groups, which come up, which of course that concept of a women's group should not be taken uncritically. Has that group excluded trans women? Why is that? What does that say about their politics? All questions that you should ask when kind of hearing about these groups. Sometimes clips I'll play won't be as specific as I am,
Well,
and that point blank sucks.
Kate,
But usually I'll clarify.
Hang on. Kate says they've got way too much time to think about this stuff. Kate, they're taught this from the time they're 5 years old in K through 12 schools. These ideas are taught in every public school in the country, in every subject, dripped out bit by bit from the time they're 5 years old. And then if they go to college, it's in every single course they take. Maybe not everyone, but like a lot of them. And so it's not as though they're not just sitting around like coming up with these ideas on their own. This is stuff that has been forced onto everyone because of what is taught in the public school system. So yeah, they've had a lot of time to think about it because the left took over the public schools specifically so they could teach this.
So I'll also be saying things like people and women seeking abortions, or just people seeking abortions. Okay. Any questions so far? I know we haven't like gotten really into it, but you know, we're gonna move on. So today I'll be sharing a brief, very, very brief look into the Black US history of abortion access and care from pre-colonial West Africa to today. So let's start with pre-colonial indigenous practices, or the ways that people who are native to lands in West Africa, or what is now known as, or people who are native to lands that are now known as America, out of abortion before European and American exploitation. What we know is largely because of early expeditions of European clergy or explorers, colonizers who, despite keeping really good records of their travels, were super uninterested in like what abortion practices were about, what they meant to these people, because they didn't like these practices. What we do know is that abortion was common with people indigenous to West Africa and with people indigenous to the United States, just like it was common in Europe. As for how abortion was accessed, people would either have someone in a community with specialized knowledge, or there would be known techniques in a given community. What these strategies were varied greatly, and a lot of that knowledge that we would have has been intentionally destroyed by the process of colonization. But we still know a lot through oral histories and traditions being carried on for centuries.
So when they're referring to colonization in this presentation, what do you think they're referring to? Because it appears to me, and I could be wrong about this, but it appears to me that this person is referring to something very, very specific when they say colonization. And don't just say capitalism. What type? No, don't say capitalism. What type of colonization? What specific event are they referring to? The colonizing event. Well, you guys are thinking about that. I'll take the super chat from Rottweiler. Yet we have conservatives saying this originated on Tumblr, when in reality these people were indoctrinated since they were kids by teachers, parents, etc. Yeah, well, conservatives are retards. No offense, conservatives. Not if you're here, you're probably not a retard. So I'm not talking about you. But anyone who thinks these ideas originated with Tumblr is a retard. Anyone who thinks these ideas originated with Obama is a retard. I'm sorry. It's just not true. Beth, I probably should have tapped out of it much sooner than I did. Okay, what colonizing event are they referring to? Slavery. In the United States. Slavery in the United States. Coming to the United States, the natives in the United States. There it is. Europeans coming to America. And slavery, of course, is a subset of that. Native Americans, of course, are a subset of that. But this is the colonizing event that they're referring to. Slavery, settlers arriving in the U.S. Yup, Reagan got it. the arrival of the Pilgrims, and well, I mean, they were calling us at Jonestown before the Pilgrims, but on the right track. When Europeans came to America, yup, exactly. So, and this is different in every presentation. They don't always refer to colonialism as this, but let's just keep in mind that in this case, they're specifically like pre-colonialism is pre-European settlers coming to America.
So we know what happened before, but we have to, of course, get into Middle Passage and the enslavement of millions of African people in the United States, Caribbean, and South America. So what does abortion look like on the plantation? To answer that, we're about to hear from Loretta Ross, one of the 12 founding mothers of reproductive justice and a premier Black abortion historian. Without her work
A
in
Black
so many ways,
abortion historian.
So we're going to hear from her.
Well, you can't talk about the United States without talking about the genocide against Native Americans and the enslavement of kidnapped Africans to work here as a workforce. I mean, our racialized capitalist system was created on genocide and exploitation. And
our racialized capitalist system was created on genocide and exploitation. So it wasn't even the presenter that said capitalism. Let's listen again.
Americans and the enslavement of kidnapped Africans to work here as a workforce. I mean, our racialized capitalist system was created on genocide and exploitation.
Now the real question of the hour. What does racial capitalism mean? You guys will never forget this again. What does racial capitalism mean? What does racial capitalism mean? Kate, what you're doing is you're trying to find you're trying to apply your logic to what these people are doing, and I promise you it's not going to work. What you need to do is detach yourself from how you're framing this, and you need to put yourself in their shoes and understand their perspective. And I promise you're going to understand this a whole lot better once you stop trying to debunk them. They debunk, this is why I say this on Socialism Saturday. Don't debunk these people. Debunking them does nothing. It means nothing. It changes nothing. It will never have any impact. It will never change their minds. It accomplishes nothing. And I understand why you're doing it. I really, really, really do, because I was in this place for a while. But you got to detach from it and just seek to understand them rather than to debunk them. Let's see. What does racial capitalism mean? Exploiting people of color for the benefit of capitalism. Exactly. The exploitation of people of color for capitalist gain. Racial capitalism is the benefit of capitalism by exploiting minorities. The use of people of color to support capitalism. You guys will never forget this again. The exploitation of minorities for the profit margin of the bourgeois class. Money earned off the backs of slavery, which in this case, Teresa, excellent. Slavery is capitalism. Capitalism is slavery. They believe that slavery was created by capitalism, which, remember, the definition of capitalism is private property ownership. I think you meant exploitation, so I'm gonna accept it because I know what you meant. Exploitation of people of color by capitalism. Capitalist colonizers exploiting people of color for the benefit of capitalism. Jan got it. Beth got it. That's okay, Alexis. You'll never forget it again. It's all good. This is about learning. Yes, you guys have all ascended out of the land of Retardia. Congratulations. You were in the land of Retardia a couple weeks ago, but I smacked you upside the head. And you made it out.
And yet, the kidnapped African women actually brought to America considerable knowledge about birth control and abortifacients that they knew on the continent. And so they began to use those as a way to restrict their own fertility, even as they became Christianized and were told that these things were sins. There were white doctors who had investigated entire plantations where the birth rate was not what the plantation owners wanted. And they surmised that there was some secret that Black women knew to control their fertility. And these white doctors were studying why, under some owners, Black women were having plenty of children and why, under others, they were not. So it was secret knowledge that was here in the United States in the hands of Black women.
They're saying Black women had secret knowledge about abortion.
So, as Loretta Ross said, people identified by their oppressors as women often had abortions in secret. However, after around
People identified by their oppressors as women. Can we just take a moment to just like, this is how they actually talk in real life.
around 1807, when the international slave trade was outlawed, meaning more people could not be taken from Africa and put to work in the United States, slave owners had became really, really invested in seeing the people that they had enslaved as breeders who would create more slaves, which then would create them more profits. We more than likely know that slavery already created really horrible conditions for any sort of reproductive health, but this period is really accurately described as a state of complete sexual terrorism.
Sexual
Slavers
terrorism
would force enslaved people to have sex with them, force enslaved people to have sex with other enslaved people. And in response to like people who did not go with that, they would either legally try or physically harm, whip those who step out of line. Here, abortion really becomes a tool of asserting your own freedom. Slavery is a horrible condition to have a baby in, and especially knowing that your child will be put to work and then also more than likely sexually exploited. Many people do not want to have children, despite what their masters would tell them, right? And so people they have their own methods of accessing abortion, even when that was not allowed. You have the story from Mary Gaffney after the Civil War. I'm going to read it. When formerly enslaved woman named Mary Gaffney refused to sleep with her husband, he complained to the master and she was whipped. After that, Mary relented, but as she explained, she still, quote, cheated the master. I never did have any slaves to grow, and master, he wondered what was the matter. I kept cotton roots, and I chewed them all the time, but I was careful not to let the master know or catch me. She went on to have several healthy children after the abolition of slavery, once her children were beyond slavery's grasp. So, as you can see from that clip, slave owners began to recognize many of the most accessible methods of abortion access and punish people for using them severely. And people, including people who like provided abortifacients, were badly whipped or legally tried for disrupting the property of these owners. Okay. I think we're going to take a really quick break.
Oh, I hope they edited out the break. Well, I guess I can fast forward.
In like 2 minutes, we'll say, at like 7:24.
These people love breaks. We're like 20 minutes. We're not even, we're 17 minutes into the presentation. We're already having a break. No music. No.
Okay, so here's this timeline of some 100 years of Black history. As you can tell, after the abolition of slavery, people's experience become super diverse and people have a lot of stuff going on. So we are going to try and briefly address some of what I think are really interesting points. Again, if you have questions about any of these things or anything that you might have heard, please ask away. I think we'll start with in the 1860s. So Black women's clubs are formed to combat racism and address health disparities of Black women and Black people in general. These groups are often kind of disregarded as like a kind of political force today, because of their tendencies towards respectability politics and counting out like poorer members, less sightly members, which often included things like homophobia, queerphobia, but also they were pillars of their communities. And if you needed access to a medical service, including abortion, they were the people to go to. And then jump to the 1920s, many Black organizations, including Black leaders, Black papers, churches, church officials, and organizations tend to discuss birth control and how Black communities needed it. They needed the support. They wanted that autonomy. They discussed that openly. And privately, they would often serve as connectors to abortion services. I think one of the most, maybe not necessarily, I guess I want to say important aspects of this is in 1925, when the National Urban League asked the Birth Control Federation of America, which would later become Planned Parenthood, to open a clinic in the Bronx to support the Black community's access to birth control there. And we're going to jump to the 1940s when throughout, since the beginning of slavery, but also through until around the 1960s, granny midwives, which were Black midwives in the South who did much of the birth and abortion services for folks in the South, were really the way that people got access to reproductive health care. Even contraceptives, they would also give those out as well. Laws cracking down on their ability to do this work really ramped up in the 1900s in favor of more modern hospitals and medical care. But the thing is that they didn't actually build those hospitals where Black people stayed. And so you were left so many people without any legal way to access any kind of healthcare, but also especially no access to abortion, right? And so people still needed that care. So Black midwives continued to provide most abortion services illegally into the 1960s. In the 1950s, overpopulation theories and eugenicist programs became really popular, resulting in the mass sterilization of women and people of color. In response to this, and also in response to concerns over the Black population not being large enough and wanting to gain voting and political power, many Black nationalist groups decried abortion and often decried abortion seekers as a threat to the Black community. Usually they would do this in a kind of overtly misogynistic way, kind of claiming that Black women were destroying the community. In the 1960s, you have Black radicals like Black Panthers, also SNCC. They are invested in abortion access as a kind of extension of meeting the needs of Black people in general, and that reproductive care is of course a part of that. At the same time, the CIA and the FBI are really infiltrating these groups, and they're dividing them intentionally through things like homophobia. A lot of gays and lesbians were pushed out of the Black Panthers in the late 60s, also exacerbating some of the existing paternalism and misogyny present in these groups, pushing like folks who were kind of making really great coalitions out of the movement. And that, of course, affects how we see reproductive access is sometimes separate from what we understand to be Black politics today. Of course, that we know that's not the truth. So here we have a clip from Morgan from the Abortion Fund of Ohio. And that's our legal
The
access
Black
fellow.
Queer Intersectional
She runs
that?
AFO's legal helpline and supports folks getting access to abortion in that way. And then it goes into a clip with Dion from Columbus's Black Queer and Intersectional Collective, otherwise known as Be Quick. I'll say more about that in a second. Play the clip.
A big part of abortion criminalization is criminalizing self-managed abortions or pregnancy results that don't occur in a medical setting. And so
why are they so focused on self-managed abortions? Because this is something that came through loud and clear for me when I went to that socialist reproductive justice conference last year. I gotta find another. I wonder if I could get away with going to that conference again. Would they be on the lookout for me this year, do you think? Would they have, if I tried to go to that reproductive justice conference again, because it's not that far away from me, like, do you think they would have like a wanted poster with my picture on it at registration to try to like prevent me from going? Do you think they'd be on the lookout? I really want to go again though. Like it's like I went on this really fun ride at the amusement park and now like the line is really long and I don't know if I want to wait in the line, but like I really want to go again. But why do we think the but for real though, like so the focus on the self-managed abortion, the at-home bathroom abortion, that was very clear to me. Why are they doing that? Oh, please. Can someone please make a wanted poster with me on it? Please, please do this. Pick a flattering picture, but please do this. That would be amazing. I would put that shit on a t-shirt in like a second. Well, yeah, actually, Elena, yes. It doesn't involve the capitalist medical system. Maria, this is also a great answer. It makes abortion more equitable. It makes it more accessible. God. Let's see. What are their answers? Maybe someone else can go. Does anyone in Western Massachusetts want to go to that abortion conference? Let me know. And this was the answer I was really looking for, Bill. Like one of the reasons they really like at-home bathroom abortions is it allows them to bypass all abortion laws. Exactly. It allows them to bypass the abortion laws. An at-home abortion is when you take the abortion pill and you get an abortion doula and you bleed your baby into the toilet over the course of several days, and then and as you're bleeding your baby into the toilet, the abortion doula comforts you and lets you know that it'll be okay. And then after you do that, you go and worship yourself at the self-worship abortion shrine. And I'm not making any of that up. I literally have pictures of this on my Substack. Everything I just said was true. No. Conservatives. We saw this last night on the Whatever podcast. Conservatives are confused. The morning after pill is not what we're talking about. It is a completely different pill, conservatives. Completely different process. It is not the morning after pill that we're talking about. Yeah, maybe I should dye my hair blonde again. And I should get a different... I need to get some, like, Warby Parker $100 glasses. I need to have a different pair. Apparently, if you just get a new pair of glasses, that changes your whole look, is what I learned at the socialism conference. Like, really all I had to do to disguise myself at the socialism conference was get a new pair of glasses and dye my hair. We'll have to think about that. Yeah, I know. I got shadow banned on Twitter yesterday for calling a tranny. Whatever. The shadow ban will go away at some point. You guys know what my Twitter account is. It's Dr. Carlin B.
So there is a lot, like usually it's when the patient goes to seek healthcare after, is usually when the social workers or hospital staff report to and call the police. And so a lot of the criminalization comes from the medical facilities and personnel that get law enforcement involved when, say, a patient self-managed an abortion but had excessive bleeding afterwards and wanted to go then get that checked out, or they had a stillbirth or a miscarriage and don't know what to do with the remains, and so they either dispose of them or call a hospital or healthcare worker, and that also leads to criminalization. It's really getting cops out of hospitals, getting cops out of the community spaces where people
Holy shit. Self-managed abortion is about getting cops out of hospitals. Hang on. I'm sorry. I need to listen to that again. I wasn't paying attention.
Facilities and personnel that get law enforcement involved when, say, a patient self-managed an abortion but had excessive bleeding afterwards and wanted to go then, get that checked out. Or they had a stillbirth or a miscarriage and don't know what to do with the remains, and so they either dispose of them or call a hospital or healthcare worker, and that also leads to criminalization. It's really getting cops out of hospitals, getting cops out of
Getting cops
these
out of
community
hospitals.
spaces where people are just trying to access care. Yeah, it honestly almost always or primarily affects Black women, especially young Black women, like Black girls under the age of 18, because they don't have access to medical facilities. They don't even have a car license or driver's license yet. There is no way to actually really prosecute these cases. They're just doing them to harm Black women and to harm Black people who access abortion. It's basically trying to make it so people who are oppressed can't handle their own medical autonomy in safe and comfortable places for them.
Actions, like, yes, we joke about Karens calling the cops on Black people for doing nothing, but that is a form of policing. That's a form of the surveillance. That's a form of how the police state infects our heads and convinces us that we're agents, we're vigilantes who have to make sure that people are being criminalized, caged, or killed. And that's our right. And we're doing something good, and this is something that's especially pertinent in repro and abortion spaces, because we see, I think it's like Texas that has really messed up law where like vigilantes can report people for getting abortions and then they're criminalized. That is the cops in our head. And the fact that there's state legislation supporting that, it's the clearest example of how the state works, not only to uphold itself and position itself as the best way forward, but also expecting us to become different agents of the state with that and supporting policing.
So that was Dion from Be Quick. I'll read their bio. Dion, they, them is a Black non-binary and neuroexpansive community organizer, writer, climate justice advocate. Okay. They are a core organizer with the Black Queer Intersectional Collective, which is an abolitionist grassroots collective based in Central Ohio by and for.
Planned Parenthoods are everywhere, bro. They're everywhere. They're in every state. They're in every city. Again, conservatives. Every fucking time you guys focus on the wrong thing, you allow the left to win. The left is winning because of shit like this. Universally. You guys always choose the wrong thing to focus on. Abortion is not about killing babies. The reason they push this is not about they want to murder their own children. And I don't want to hear any talking points about how conservatives are really the ones that support the Black community when you guys are racist as shit. Abortion is about disrupting the gender binary. That is all it's about. If you don't understand that, please ask questions about it. But every single time you guys focus on the wrong thing, you allow them to win. They are winning because you cannot keep your eye on the ball. Oh, is this the person that was telling me that James Lindsay absolutely mentioned capitalism in that interview that James Lindsay absolutely did not mention capitalism in? Is that the same person that was crying about my James Lindsay debunking in the comments? And they're like, James Lindsay mentioned capitalism. You were just talking. And so you couldn't hear him mention capitalism. Yeah, okay. Okay. Thanks, Rottweiler.
Black LGBTQIA plus folks that was founded in 2017. And one part of what they were saying, we're going to hear from
I don't know why my mic is so loud. I keep turning it down. Maybe I'm talking
a bit,
extra
but
loud.
one part of what they were saying was with that Texas law, which kind of encourages folks to go after abortion seekers. One really interesting thing about that, interesting, horrifying, terrible thing about that bill is that it actually, in the earliest versions of it, it targets when a person like successfully like sues a person or catches a person, it actually targets the abortion provider, the doctor, the clinician, and so they are legally responsible. And so that makes we already know that Black trans people, Black people in general, consistently struggle to access care that is helpful, respectful, willing to listen to them. But when you kind of make the space of the doctor's office
Exactly.
an overtly space that's in danger of being criminalized.
If James Lindsay had actually said the word capitalism in that entire interview, I would have celebrated. The entire chat would have erupted. We would have all been okay, like, okay, Lindsay, you don't suck as much as we thought you sucked a minute ago. Like, we would have given James Lindsay all the credit in the world if James Lindsay had actually said capitalism. But James Lindsay didn't say capitalism. And even when James Lindsay obviously and clearly doesn't tell his audience the truth, I still have James Lindsay stands in my comments trying to gaslight me into believing that James Lindsay said capitalism when he didn't actually say capitalism. No one remembers the capitalism. No one. We all saw the same presentation.
On all levels. Wow. It presents a very specific danger to Black, queer, and trans folks. Access issues. Okay, so we can see that pre with the history and post as we are here now today, the fall of Roe v. Wade in 2022, there have been a lot of issues relating to abortion access for Black folks. This has been, of course, just one aspect of the Black maternal and parental health crisis. The political climate really contributes to a lot of like the struggles we face because, of course, in Ohio, there was a 6-week abortion ban in place for only around 90 days. That's a long time, but it's not, to this day. But a lot of people don't have the time, don't have the money to just consistently follow where these cases are going, what the new standard is, and all of that. And capitalism really does deprive us of like time to access our community, deprive us of time in general, so that we can like pay attention to these things and put as much of ourselves in this work as we might want to. I mean, that's an important thing to raise here. There's also lack of access to clinics. As you can see, there are
Did
only
he just say
9
capitalism?
abortion clinics.
He did. I'm sorry. I wasn't listening. I was like, did he say that capitalism, capitalism really holy shit. Okay, hang on. I need to clip this. Capitalism deprives us of the time that we need to like really understand these things. That was a great clip. Hang on. See, when they say capitalism, we listen. The time mark is 31 minutes.
The money to just consistently follow where these put down. The political climate really contributes for Black folks. This has been, of course, just one aspect of the Black maternal and parental health crisis. The political climate really contributes to a lot of like the struggles we face because, of course, in Ohio, there was a 6-week abortion ban in place for only around 90 days. That's a long time, but it's not, to this day. But a lot of people don't have the time, don't have the money to just consistently follow where these cases are going, what the new standard is, and all of that. And, capitalism really does deprive us of like time to access our community, deprive us of time in general, so that we can like pay attention to these things and put as much of ourselves in this work as we might want to. I mean, that's an important thing to raise here.
Capitalism.
There's also.
Hang on. Capitalism prevents us from being the activists that we're all desperate to be, is what was just said. We could be doing the work, except that capitalism doesn't allow us to do the work. Hang on, let me get my clip saved. Got it.
Lack of access to clinics. As you can see, there are only 9 abortion clinics in the state. For context on like what that number means for Ohio's history, in 1992, there were 45 abortion clinics.
Exactly. We have jobs. Ohio. Exactly.
Oh, wait a second. For context, in 1992, there were 45 abortion clinics in Ohio, and by 2014, there were only 12. And of course, now we have 9. And that rapid increase is in part due to targeted restrictions on abortion providers, traps, and these are medically unnecessary restrictions, which really stop medical clinics from being opened and close existing abortion clinics. Okay, so that was a lot. Anyone have any questions on what we've covered so far? Of course, we're a little low on time, but if at any point you can ask questions, all that. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, if you have a pen or a pencil, paper, if you have access to that, or even in a Google Doc, do what you need to do. But I'm going to formally introduce
Reproductive justice, the right to
so this will just
have
be
a child,
minutes
the
to
right
just
to not have a
think
child,
about process,
the right to parent the child,
some of the
have
stuff
control.
that I've just talked about on your own. You can also, if you want, share some of your thoughts in the chat, but no pressure to do that if you don't want to. So the question to reflect on. After talking about the Black history of abortion in the United States, we're going to be talking about some of the Black feminist political advocacy, which tries to combat these ongoing struggles.
No.
And more specifically, we're going to be talking about
SB is still in the chat.
justice.
SB is still welcome to provide his
I
evidence.
guess my question for you all is,
it's still in the
what
chat.
do you know about reproductive justice right now? What have you heard about Black feminism?
Okay, let's go back. Let's go back and find SB's response to the idea that James Lindsay said capitalism. I'll just rewind the chat in my screen. And so I'm sure that SB provided us with a specific timestamp. Nope. And there it is.
This is a free write, so no judgment, whatever you have in your mind.
Maybe it was a different person.
So yeah, I'll give a few minutes.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Let me see.
Don't remember.
Oh. I'll answer this question from Jasmine. What time period did the clinics decrease from 45 to 9 clinics over a period of 5 years? So sorry. Clinics decreased in 1992. There were 45 abortion clinics in Ohio. In 2014, there were 12.
All right. Well, SB says we got the wrong person, so we'll apologize if that's the case.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sure I get that right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sam. Also, with that reflection, I'll also give you all a break from information for a few minutes. So let's regroup at 7:42.
All right, we're not gonna sit here for the 2-minute reflection. Hang on.
Oh, that's like
no music, no music. Oh, okay.
Directly targeting clinics in different push against, etc. Here's a question. How much of the decrease in abortion providing clinics in Ohio is because of funding versus other factors like restrictive legislation, etc.? I want to say I'm not totally sure. I've been mostly looking at like recent history of this, but what I do know is that like as for like recent stuff, there has been this really intentional political push against abortion providers, against abortion clinics. Like there's recently been some stuff with Mike DeWine, like directly targeting clinics in different ways. And so I think that like right now it's kind of with this like legislative push against abortion. But I also, I want to say that for like, that's for sure of the entire history. But that's a really good question. And I think, yeah, I'll think more about that. Okay, we're going to move into the next section. So thank you for sharing your reflections in the chat. No pressure to do that, but you know, nice to see where other people are at. Okay. Getting free, the road to reproductive justice.
Can I just say, and this is a shout out to Bill. Bill just fucking responded to one of James Lindsay's tweets with a screenshot of my book. Okay, but for real, I want to create a reply guy army on Twitter in which every time an influencer is giving out wrong or incorrect information, Like, we have people on Twitter that are in the replies sharing the correct information, or you're telling me when they're giving stuff out, and so I can retweet them or screenshot them or whatever and share the correct information. And so anyone who is on Twitter, if you want to be part of my reply guy army, because I'm not like, because apparently here's what I've learned. Twitter is the only fucking thing that matters to these people. Now, I think that's stupid, but we have to work with what we're given. And so if Twitter and reply guys on Twitter and nonsense on Twitter and shaming people on Twitter is all that matters to these people, then we should give them what they asked for. And so if you want to be part of like my reply guy army that I'm creating, head over, make sure you're following me on Twitter. Now, I'm currently shadow banned for calling a tranny, but you can find me on Twitter at Dr. Carlin B. You can join the Unwoke Army community that I have in my profile. You can DM me stuff. You can like let me know when someone is saying stuff that you think I need to reply to. I will create images for you so you can reply to them directly. You can just use your knowledge that you've gotten from these streams to be able to correct them, and always tag me in it, because it really pisses some of them off when you tag me in it, and it's really funny, especially the people who have blocked me. And I especially want to target James Lindsay. And if James Lindsay's blocked you on Twitter, then create a new fucking account. You can create a sock account. You can create a reply guy account. It's not that hard. And when he blocks that account, you create another account. I have like 87 Twitter accounts, okay? So it's going to be fun. We're going to piss some people off, and it's going to be great.
Reproductive justice emerges. So, to make a long story short, in 1994, 12 Black women leave a pro-choice conference, very disappointed at the lack of like root level analysis. There are people like the Clinton administration is there trying to propose a new healthcare plan, which they hope will get passed. But in order to pass it, they are kind of minimizing reproductive care, which why they would present that at the pro-choice conference, I don't know. But what I do know is that these 12 Black women and many others, these 12 Black women go to a hotel and they discuss, what they're thinking about this. And again, they're saying that the pro-choice movement and the pro-life movement both miss the root of a lot of the issues that they are supposedly trying to fight against. And so they coined this idea of reproductive justice, an intersectional approach to reproductive health and autonomy, addressing the failures of both movements, in order to initially support the needs of Black women. To the surprise of its founders, reproductive justice quickly spread from this group, and they're organizing to a kind of like grassroots approach that's kind of taking the world by storm, and creating. It's a really great tools for creating like community level change. And I think people are resonating with that. And so when I say reproductive justice, when we say reproductive justice, what do we mean? We have Oriaku Njoku from speaking on the podcast No Body Criminalized. She, they pronouns. She's the executive director of the National Network of Abortion Funds. I mentioned a bit earlier, and we're going to hear what she has to say on this.
It's important to note too what we're talking about when we're saying reproductive justice. Something I've noticed over the years in doing this work is that there's been this like whitewashing of reproductive justice, this co-opting of reproductive justice in a way that it has lost the radical and bold nature of what the 12 founding mothers of reproductive justice intended when they decided to coin that phrase, When we're talking about reproductive justice, it's really acknowledging the human right to bodily autonomy. Also, whether to be a parent, not to be a parent, raise your children or your families in safe and sustainable communities. This is all part of it. Talking about this work with a reproductive justice lens is inherently intersectional, meaning you can't just think about choice or abortion on this like choice binary. It really is like, what are all the things that impact the choices that we make every day? Because as Audre Lorde says, we do not live single issue lives. And so thinking about how race and gender and the economy and your zip code and your access to food and global warming or climate change, all of these things have an impact on why people make the choices that they make. I think the places where we are able to have these really great wins and success is when our groups are working together within using the reproductive justice framework or lens to guide the way the work is happening. We're able to make connections with our work and other work that is happening outside of the repro movement. So, working with folks who are doing Fight for 15, working with folks who are doing things around childcare, working with people who are doing work around Medicaid expansion, the working with people, not working for people, because we have acknowledged that this is for us. Like, we live here too. The activists are like, we want it for us and we want it for everyone in our community.
So going off of that, reproductive justice is a movement which,
What does sexual
by
justice
its like
mean?
nature as
I don't know what that
Black
means.
feminist framework, carries a heavy load. It's meant to fill in the gaps left by the government, gaps left by
No, hang on.
activists
If
or
you're gonna
political
do if
figures
you're
who
if you're
want.
gonna do a wanted poster for me, then it's gotta be by the socialists, because that's really all I'm interested. I don't give a just like the socialists don't care about the conservatives because the conservatives have already lost and are so far off the mark that they don't even factor into socialist decision making. I don't want conservative people impacting my wanted poster. The socialists are the most important. Let's just make it about the socialists. If I had to give a an opinion on that.
To assimilate or compromise on the freedom and autonomy of all people. Usually when we talk about reproductive justice, it starts with 3 pillars. The first pillar being the right to have children, going into the right not to have children, and not finally, but third, the right to nurture the children we have in safe and healthy environments. But of course, reproductive justice cannot afford to be stagnant. And while these 4 pillars are consistent throughout most, if not all, reproductive justice activism, they're usually expanded and adapted depending on who needs them. While the movement started for Black women, it expanded.
First of all, this is not going to even be a hot. Please use a good picture of me. No fucking around.
To meet the needs of women and people of color more broadly. For instance, in addition to what we discussed already, many indigenous activists use art reproductive justice to fight for land rights. Others have used it to fight for equitable treatment to those who are immigrating or in the process.
They need to fight for bodily autonomy to talk about trans surgery. So while you're right that bodily autonomy is individualistic, being a comrade means engaging in these sorts of things. And in fact, having trans surgery, like having top surgery, is considered one of the highest level forms of commitment that you can make to the comrades. Again, conservative retards. This is not about abortion. This is not about, well, it is about abortion. It's not about killing babies. It's not about getting pregnant. It's not about, they just want to have a lot of sex because they're just a bunch of whores. That's not what this is about, conservative retards. I've already said it 3 times in this stream. This is about abolishing the gender binary. Until you morons understand this and you stop just trying to own the libs every single time, you're like, they just want to murder their babies. They just want to be whores. That's why they want abortion. No. Until you start to grasp this, you will always and perpetually be the losers that you crave to be. Has nothing to do with wanting to be whores. It has nothing to do with wanting to murder their babies. It only and exclusively has to do with abolishing the gender binary. I mean, conservatives have convinced themselves that abortion is about a lot of things that it's not about. It's like how conservatives have convinced themselves that drag queens are about pedophilia, when in fact drag queens are about teaching kids that gender is performative. It's like they missed the mark literally every single possible opportunity.
Discriminating. And queer people specifically have expanded to include sexual justice. Kimala Price writes on how, quotes, the last 2 decades of queer organizing included an expansion of the definition of reproductive justice to include sexual justice, which encompasses, among many things, the right to pleasure, consensual sexuality, the right to gender identity and expression, and the freedom to form the relationships and families of one's choosing. That's really important. So Black people, Black queer people have already been thinking through the lens of reproductive justice, with or without that name, which came about in the 90s. We know that our struggles are intertwined, and we know that we have to work inside and outside of the state to get our needs met. I think about STAR, the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. This is Marsha P. Johnson and
What?
Sylvia Rivera.
The Street? What the fuck did they just say? The Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries.
This is Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera's group, active in the early 1970s. They, in addition to doing public-facing political advocacy for those who had been largely left behind by the queer rights movement, also provided.
As a libertarian who's kind of agreeing with the if you're agreeing with the speaker, that is going to be your first problem, because I don't know why you're supporting socialists if you're in my feed, but I don't like. That's your first fucking problem if you're agreeing with the speaker. Like, because you, like, if you think that this person is above board on anything that they're saying and it's not about it, like, you're not a libertarian if you support the downfall of capitalism defined as private property, bro. One of the cardinal tenets of libertarianism is private property. You are not a libertarian if you oppose private property. And if you're agreeing with the speaker, then you're literally opposing private property. I don't know if you're new and you just haven't been listening to what I've been saying for the last hour and a half, but I've seen you on my streams before. I know you have some semblance of this. So I'm a little confused about why you're saying you're a libertarian that opposes private property. You're not a libertarian, bro. I don't get the link to trans. It is about bodily autonomy. The link to trans. Okay, again, apparently I have to deal with retard libertarians as well. I will now repeat this for the 4th time on this stream. And if you have questions, then you need to ask them, because obviously you are confused. What this is about abolishing the gender binary. That is all this is about. Reproductive justice supports the abolition of the gender binary. Queer Marxism, not trans, because trans is different from queer, proving that you haven't listened to me again. Queer Marxism is about the abolition of the gender binary. Everything this person is saying is about the abolition of the gender binary. Are you confused by that? Confirm yes or no in the chat. Are you confused by this? If you agree with the abolition of the gender binary, get the fuck out of my chat right now and don't come back. If you agree with abolishing private property, get the fuck out of my chat right now and don't come back. But I have a hard time understanding the confusion because I've seen you here before. All right, you got it. Now repeat it back to me. Answer your own question. What did I just say? And we'll wait here until you repeat it back to me. What did I just say? While we're waiting, I'm going to acknowledge Tolkien fans. Awesome super chat. Thank you, Tolkien fan. Dr. K's videos and Substacks have opened my eyes to how a lot of conservative commentators I've watched have no idea what's really happening and are just chasing clout. That is the best super chat I've gotten all day, Tolkien fan. Thank you. I really, really, really do appreciate it. We are still waiting for a response from the alleged libertarian. What does that mean? You're not answering your own question, bro. You're not doing what I just asked you to do. Your question was, first off, you started off with the boneheaded statement saying you agree with the dissolution of private property, being like that you're claiming to be a libertarian that doesn't believe in private property. This is the question you need to answer. Try again. If people can't tell, I'm very resentful when people who have been in my chat before, who should know better, make me repeat myself over and over and over again on the same stream because they're not listening. You're still not answering my question. You're still not listening. What is hard to understand about what I'm asking of you? What is hard to understand about what I'm asking of you? Well, you did, because you say you agree with this person, but you don't seem to understand what they're actually saying. And so we're going to make sure you understand what they're actually saying. Do you still agree with this person? Because you still haven't articulated to me that you actually understand anything I'm telling you. So this is your opportunity to either show me that you understand what I'm telling you or to ask questions to clarify. And if you're not going to do either of those things, then what are you doing here? You're not in favor of private property if you agree with this person. This person doesn't want you to have private property. Nothing this person has said in this entire presentation supports private property ownership. Do you understand that? Can you explain to me why? Why does what I'm saying relate back to the ownership of private property? Why is everything in this presentation about private property ownership? You weren't asking though. You weren't. Why does everything in this presentation have to do with private property ownership? The person you said you agree with does not believe private property should exist. And they've already made that very clear in this presentation. So why are you agreeing with them and claiming to be a libertarian? Where does the gender binary come from, bro? We'll wait. You can answer any of those questions. You're not answering a single question I've asked you so far. I don't really expect you to at this point. Maybe you'll surprise me. Where do you think the gender binary comes from? I've already explained it at least twice in this presentation. Where does the gender binary come from? We're waiting. Where does the gender binary come from? No, wrong, incorrect. Completely incorrect. You don't know where the gender binary comes from because you haven't been listening to what I've been saying. Try again. Where does the gender binary come from? And how does that relate to private property ownership? So this shouldn't be hard, bro. I've said it several times in this presentation. This is why I say, guys, open your fucking ears. I don't like having to repeat myself. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You do that.
Shelter to homeless LGBT youth and trans youth who are often also sex workers. While it said in some places to be the first LGBT youth shelter in North America, I think it's actually really hard to say that for sure because when looking at the history of Black queer people specifically, a lot of people see that need and are trying similar projects.
If people in the chat want to answer to help this person out, they can.
Who in the 1940s.
I am not going to answer this person because I don't believe this person has been listening to a word I've been saying for the last hour and 40 minutes. But if other people in the chat would like to answer the clear questions that I just asked to help that person understand what they're watching, they're more than welcome to do that. The questions are, what created the gender binary and how does that relate to private property ownership?
Also recognize that Black queer people had almost no spaces in the existing queer scene and the existing Black scene. And so she and her life partner decided to make their home a meeting place and shelter for people in the trade, right? And so while neither of these groups had or used the language of reproductive justice, these pillars of sexual justice and how we now understand.
And let this be a lesson of what will happen when you come in my chat and say that you agree with a radical revolutionary socialist. Because if you're agreeing with a radical revolutionary socialist, that is the first sign that something has gone horribly wrong and you have not listened to what I've been saying.
Bodily autonomy are in part inspired by their work. In the early 2000s, when it came time for people like Carmen Vasquez, a founder of Cause in Common, a national coalition of LGBT liberation and reproductive justice activists, to build that kind of specific coalition, it became all the more apparent that this was shared work. And while these stories are really notable and these individuals they talk about are really great, when looking at what Black queer history we know, stories like these are not rare. When you're facing multiple levels of oppression, people do somewhat consistently fight back and make their own spaces with and for each other. And so sexual justice is one of those major points of connection. In other words, reproductive justice is about building and sustaining communities, which Black queer people have already been doing. I hope it's clear that this is less of like an ask for like, Black queer people, please do reproductive justice. We need this so bad. It's actually more about recognizing how reproductive justice is already a part of our history and building upon that. Any questions? Oh, ooh, I saw. Oh, okay. One question was answered. Okay, very cool. And any other questions at them in that tab? We're going to go into another reflection.
Oh, another one.
So we know what we're fighting against. We know.
All right, let's see what this says. After decades of conflict in America, holy shit. And America is spelled with KKK in it. Do you guys see that? AMERIKKK. After decades of conflict in KKK America, the Republic of New Africa, also spelled with a K, was born in the former southern states in 1968. The nation's first president, Malcolm X, announced the Free Black Nation's annexation, backed by his coalition of Black Panthers, Pan-Africanists, Black Socialists, and I don't know what that says, who waged a guerrilla campaign against the empire. New Africans could finally breathe the fresh air of home. They shared with each other, knowing that there was always more. And then from prison, I swear it wasn't a dream. Or is this life a nightmare I have to wake up from? Wow. Wow. All right. Human Centipede says anybody showing up that doesn't understand capitalism, private property, nuclear family, queer, or gender binary should be scrutinized as possibly being James Lindsay undercover. That's awful. That's awful. I love it.
The sinister, the evil, but what are we fighting for? I want to ask, what would a future free of these issues look like? What would freedom, reproductive justice look like for you? I'm going to very quickly read Land of the Free by Ben Passmore before we go into a break where you can all decompress. After decades of conflict in New America, the Republic of New Africa was born in the former southern states of 1968. The nation's first president, Malcolm X, announced the Free Black Nations annexation backed by his coalition of Black Panthers, Pan-Africanists, Black Socialists, and Anarchatas, who'd waged a guerrilla campaign against the
Anarchatas. What
empire.
is that?
New Africans could finally breathe the fresh air of home. They shared it with each other, knowing there was always more. And then the character wakes up in a jail cell and says, I swear it wasn't a dream. Or is this life a
Really?
nightmare I have to wake up from?
Really? Get a screenshot of that, Tayton.
That was Ben Passmore, wonderful Black anarchist artist. Yeah, so reflect on those things. I will see you all back in like 2-ish minutes.
All right, let's
maybe
fast forward.
7:50.
No music, no music, no music, no music, no music.
This history, taking this knowledge. Last 30 minutes of this workshop, but we're going to get into some more of the practical side of taking this history, taking this knowledge, and doing things with it. So just to start, one of the ways that I like to think about like queer reproductive justice and a future for Black queer people is based on my understanding of Black queer liberation as a recognition of Black queerness as a source of both strength and power. Since the beginning, Black queer people have been finding ways to exist within and around systems that seek to oppress us. And so we're going to talk about what reinforcing Black self-determination and autonomy might look like, what that entails, what work we have to do to get there. So to start this conversation off right, we're going to be talking to two of...
Did you guys know that abortion storytelling is like, it's like a thing on the left? There were entire workshops at that socialist reproductive justice conference I went to called the Abortion Storytellers, where they sat women who had abortions down and they taught them how to tell their abortion story. There are people, and these two are probably some of those people who work for these abortion clinics, who call themselves the abortion storytellers. And the reason they do this is because they want to like basically like have first person testimonials to say, here is my abortion story and it was great and I had a great experience and I would do it over and over and over and over and over again, and I'm not ashamed of having my abortion. I'm a shout my abortion type of person. They literally put this in their professional bios. I have this on my Substack. They say, I'm an abortion storyteller, or I train abortion storytellers.
Oh, wait a second, sorry. Two of AFO's wonderful abortion storytellers. If you haven't heard, abortion storytelling is a very important tool for not only helping people understand what abortion access looks like, but also for building community. First, we're going to be talking to Simone, who you all will be able to see in just a second.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, Teresa. I feel like this is the conservative version of abortion storytelling. I don't believe this either. I know a lot of women who have abortions that don't really care. So I don't believe conservative abortion storytelling any more than I believe leftist abortion storytelling, if I'm honest about it. I just don't.
Okay. Woo-hoo. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, I'm gonna introduce you. First up, we have Simone. Simone is an abortion storyteller, reproductive justice activist from Indianapolis, Indiana, since 2018. She has proudly shared her abortion story at the individual and organizational level, including with Planned Parenthood. Simone joined Abortion Fund Ohio.
So leftists will literally have these people go around and do trainings at like conferences and events, and they share their abortion story, and then they teach everyone else how to tell a cohesive story about how happy they are about their abortion. This isn't just like something they do on the side. This is actually a real thing.
As a patient resource coordinator in August of 2022. Prior to AFO, Simone worked as a care professional and nursing assistant, assisting folks with tasks for independent living and crisis intervention. I want to
you know what's funny about this? So I don't know that I agree that Drag Queen Story Hour is quiet, but you know what's funny about this abortion storytelling thing? Do I want to say this? Ah, fuck it, I'll say it. Glenn Beck's team knew about this and wouldn't tell people about it. Because when I went to the Socialist Reproductive Justice Conference, I gave all of this information to Glenn Beck's producers. And they said, Carlin, can you convince us that this is something that people would actually be interested in? And I said, you're telling me that conservatives are not interested in stories about abortion storytelling? Like, I don't know why I have to explain this. I have an article on my Substack called The Abortion Storytellers. Because no one would fucking cover this. Just to show you guys how, like, I've always told you guys, like, you would be shocked at how much your conservative media is not telling you.
Thank you so much for being here. And I'll get right into.
Nope, they weren't interested in this either. They weren't interested in this either. It's like, all right, well, I don't believe you actually believe what you say you do. Then
abortion
sorry.
access look like for you?
Like,
yeah, so
like Glenn Beck, why am I like I'm fucking pro-choice, man. I'm pro-choice. Why do I think the self-managed bathroom abortion tour and the abortion doulas and the in the photos of the self-worship abortion shrine and the abortion storytellers, why do I think that that's more important than Glenn Beck and his producers do? That was the last time I ever communicated with them, was over this. I was like, you guys aren't going to talk about this, then I have absolutely no faith at all that you care about anything that you say you care about, which is a real shame because I liked them and I thought that they were above board. But no. Nope.
I live in Indiana, even though I work for the Abortion Fund of Ohio. I am a Hoosier. Okay, I was born and raised here in Indiana. So I had my abortion in 2016. So it was right after Mike Pence's era.
This is what they teach them to do.
It was difficult as far as like the barriers and things.
Well, this was last April,
I was a high school
so this was a
student,
long
or I was
time
a
ago.
college student, freshman at a high school, and I had no car. I worked at a warehouse, and I was making like $9.50 an hour. So, depending on my partner at the time, who was not very supportive, it was hard to get there on the first appointment. And then when I found out that there was a waiting period of 24 hours, I was just like, well, I took off of work for this and I'm gonna have to take off another day of work. And I can't afford this in the first place. Um, so it was just a back and forth of like trying to find funds in the state. The Hoosier Abortion Fund actually helped me fund my abortion. Shout out to them. But it actually ended up being 6 weeks between my first appointment and the time that I actually got my surgical procedure done. So it was a rough and tumble at that time. It still is, obviously, in Indiana now. It's even harder, actually. Like you can't go up to 11 weeks like I did. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to ask about your experience as an abortion advocate. Um, what has been your experience hearing narratives about abortion? I also want to ask, like, what are common misconceptions that you hear in community?
Yes. So sharing my abortion story has been like so extremely liberating, and not only for myself, but for the people around me. I've had dear friends and their family members, older Black women in their families share like, "Oh, I wish somebody like you was around when I had my abortion because nobody was talking about it. Like it was just something you did and you never talked about it for the rest of your life." And I would go to Black Expo and table sometimes for different organizations. And just seeing all of the aunties and the cousins and everybody, different ages, different lifestyles coming to the table and like talking to me about like, I had an abortion or my mom had an abortion, my sister had an abortion, and just hearing everybody's experiences was so eye-opening. I'm like, we need to be talking about this more. So yeah, like talking about abortion with Black people is it's like the stigmas are there. But for me, I've dealt with my own personal stigma, like personally. So I have a little bit more space to have the tougher conversations around like Black sexuality and what that means for people who have abortion and how we're viewed in our community. But I love talking to Black people about abortions. I love it.
I'm so glad. Me too. I want to ask you, what's up with multiple abortion stigma? Where does that kind of stigma show up and impact people? I'm gonna wait a second so that we can make sure the ASMR flipper is visible on the screen.
So while it lets me spotlight up to 2 people at a time, right now
I can be unspotlighted if that helps.
we also have, I just added our friends as under the interpretation button. So you will have to click the little globe at the bottom now while we have our storytellers on.
Oh, I mean, this was like, so the presentations at the thing I went to were like, this was a training. It wasn't even just it wasn't even just sitting around talking about your abortion. They actually teach women how to frame their story in the most in the way that's going to garner the most empathy. They workshop the stories. So they make sure they practice telling the stories. So this isn't just like they're sitting around having tea and like chit-chatting. They're workshopping how best to tell the stories. They're rehearsing, they're role playing. It's like it's a whole thing. And they don't allow people in the room that haven't had an abortion. Like the only people who are allowed to go are people who've had an abortion and who want to spread the good word about having an abortion and how great it is. I swear to God.
Thanks for being flexible, friend.
So at the bottom of the screen, there's a little globe. I think you just heard Sam say this, but I clicked it. I can now see the AS interpreter. Please let us know if that does not work. And I'll repeat the question. What's up with multiple abortion stigma? Where does kind of stigma show up and how does it impact people?
So with having multiple abortions, like a lot of the things that I hear is people talk about abortion as like a lesson, like that you need to learn from. Mm-hmm. And you don't do it again. And if you do it again, like you're careless. And it's like, there are a plethora of reasons why you would want or need multiple abortions. One of the main ones for myself, I've not had multiple abortions, but I would get another one because I don't want to be pregnant right now. I don't want kids right
They've got a green crystal slime that just came out. It's not the blood orange one, but it's like the similar and it's green.
now. And that's valid. And there are a million other reasons why people would get multiple abortions. And that just, I think, comes from
They have a yellow one
like
too.
the kind of like the purity culture that we have in our communities, and like how it's so hush hush, like having one abortion already. And
Hang on, SP is asking an actual question. They do have a yellow glimmer one bot. So wait, honest question, are these women who got into this storytelling as a result of getting an abortion, or do they get an abortion? No, they so you got to understand, these people it's not a grift for these people. It's not these I understand that people on the conservative right grift off of the conservative right because the conservative right are retarded. The conservative right will literally lift up anyone that says the things that they want them to say, or that articulate the narrative that they're trying to sell. People on the left believe this. They live this. This is something that is at the core of their identity. This is not a grift. It is not a grift. Like on the left, you don't have failed comedians and failed actors as influencers. You only have that on the right. That's not true on the left. The people who are influencers on the left are people who have been living and breathing this ideology their entire lives. They don't just get into it because they're trying to build a brand and make money. So no, they didn't get an abortion to grift off of being an abortion storyteller. They got an abortion because they believe it is their God-given right to have as many abortions as they want at any time for any reason. And then they also believe that having an abortion is a core aspect of getting rid of the gender binary, because the gender binary was created by capitalism, and because they're all good little socialists, they want to abolish capitalism, and they need to destabilize the gender binary in order to do that. And abortion and reproductive justice is one of the key tactics they have to destabilize the gender binary and attack the nuclear family at the same time, both elements of which attack capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership. So they believe this. So not only will they get an abortion themselves, they will use their abortion to convince other women to get abortions too, because every time they are convincing a woman to get an abortion, in their minds, they are convincing someone to reject the gender binary and reject the idea of, like, I mean, they're not teaching them to reject the nuclear family, but attacking the gender binary is an attack on the nuclear family. Does that make sense? This is who they are, guys. You cannot look at the left and believe that they operate in the same way that the right does. Because they don't. The left are true, like, not everyone on the left is a true believer, but the people that we watch are the true believers. This is who they are. This is how they talk in private. This is how they communicate with this is not a public, like, what we're watching right now, they put it on YouTube, but this is them teaching each other. They probably are making no money off of this. Not like a lot of the activists don't make money. It's not a grift. Like, don't be confused by the socialists, like, well, the alleged socialists on YouTube. Because most of the people on YouTube claiming to be socialists are not real socialists at all. They're useful idiots. The people on YouTube are grifting, like Bosch, Hassan Piker, Midwestern Marx. Those aren't real socialists. They're really not. These are the real socialists. They would do this stuff for free every single day if they could. Because this is who they are, and this is the world that they want to create.
like I said, it's like it's something that you have to learn from, quote unquote, and you just don't do it again.
And I want to ask you, we're nearing the end of our time together, but I want to ask you one final question of what has been your experience in supporting trans folks accessing care? How can reproductive justice advocates show up better for trans folks?
Yes, I take it as like a cisgendered woman. It's my job to learn how to become like I have to learn the language of being inclusive. Like I have to learn how to be inclusive. It's not anybody else's job to educate me. So the way I go into my work and knowing that I will encounter trans people and people who are non-binary and people of all different sexualities and gender identities, I go into it and I don't talk about abortion as a issue that only affects women. Just off jump, I say people who have abortions. When I'm talking to my lovely patients, like I don't assume that I'm talking to a woman on the other end of the line. I know it can be weird for some people, like when I ask them their pronouns, because I've encountered a lot of patients who are like, well, I'm obviously, you know what I'm saying, but it's like we just have to keep doing it. We have to do it and we have to hold each other accountable for doing it. And that's how I show up and try to be as inclusive and be an ally for trans people. I know I'm running out of time here.
You were just fine.
When I was a nursing assistant, I encountered a patient that was trans, and the nurses that were on staff were like constantly dead naming this patient, and the patient was also deaf. And so like I just didn't understand how they could be so nasty in that way. I'm like, that they can't hear you and you're gossiping about them in their face. And I did get those people fired from that job, but like that's what I mean. Like you're not gonna do that. Like you can't do that. And my job as a person who has privilege as a cisgender woman was to correct those people on their behalf and stand in front of them when they're getting harmed. So yeah, I think it's really important just to, be there for people.
So for the record, and listen, I don't agree with what the nurses did. I think that everyone deserves basic respect and courtesy. I actually really do believe that. I don't think you call someone something they don't want to be called. It's like when people mispronounce my name and I correct them and then they continue to say my name wrong over and over and over again because they're being dicks. Like maybe it's just a soft spot for me, but I do think it's ironic that the deaf person couldn't hear them. So the deaf person didn't know what they were saying. And so there was no harm actually being created in this because the deaf person didn't know what they were saying. But the activist was like, you're harming them. And so I'm going to get you fired, even though no harm was done. I think my moral bias makes it easier to rationalize their MO as a grift than an ideology. Well, but this is the problem. This is the problem. This is why conservatives don't understand what they're fighting. Because conservatives are constantly trying to take something and fit it into their own bias instead of trying to look at what they're doing and understand it. So I appreciate you asking the question, but like you really need to understand they have a completely different mindset than you do. They don't have your morals, bro. Your morals are not their morals. Your values are not their values. If you try to apply your morals to them, you lose. If you try to apply your values to them, you lose. And by the way, there's nothing saying that they have to share your morals or values. I probably do not share your morals and values. And there is nothing that's probably going to make me share your morals and values. If you don't understand someone else for what they believe and who they are, you can never, ever defeat them. And the reason that conservatives lose over and over and over again is that they refuse to put and I'm not saying you're doing this, I'm just saying in general, they refuse to put their own ideas aside and acknowledge that different people see the world differently. and that they're under no obligation to agree with conservatives. No obligation at all.
Thank you so much. You know, I've gained so much from this experience. I know people in the chat are appreciating it as well. We're going to transition into talking to Taryn. Thank you again.
Exactly. It's about listening and understanding.
Hello.
Hello.
So now we're going to talk to Taryn. Taryn Hollyman, she, her, is a dynamic reproductive justice organizer, abortion storyteller, and the program manager for the Abortion Fund of Ohio.
It's in their bio.
Before joining AFO, Taryn worked as an organizing fellow and regional field manager for Planned Parenthood of Southwest Ohio, working directly with patients, volunteers, and advocates. Hi. To get started, I want to ask, what did abortion access look like for you?
Yeah, so I had both of my abortions in 2019, which was during the time where the 6-week ban was, it wasn't in effect for those.
I had both of my abortions in 2019. So she got pregnant. She had an abortion. She got pregnant again and had another abortion within a fucking year. Girl.
6 weeks, but it was all I knew is that it was a thing, and I was not too familiar with repro before that. So I remember immediately as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like,
hang on, Dragon Tail, this is a good question. Are there any schools who invite these abortion storytellers into classrooms? Or this is a really good question. I don't know the answer to this question, but I kind of want to do, when this presentation is over, I kind of want to do a little bit more research into the abortion storytelling stuff, because like I said, there's an article on my Substack, carlin.substack.com, about the abortion storytellers. I looked into this back in April when I went to that conference. But I haven't really looked into it since, but this is a really good question. Where are these people actually speaking? And I think maybe some searching around the idea of abortion storytelling might give us some more information about that. Good question. Good question.
Can I even get an abortion in Ohio? I was in school in Athens, and I didn't have a vehicle. The closest abortion clinic was in Columbus, which was about an hour and a half away. But I'm from Cincinnati, and I wanted to be able to hopefully try to access care down there. I was fortunate enough to have amazing friends around me who did, have a car, and she helped me get home and make it to my appointments. But that in and of itself, getting there, I had no idea at first what was going to happen. Then of course we have this waiting period in Ohio, and I had to wait over a month in between my first appointment and second appointment. And I was working a lot. It was the summertime when I had my first one, and I was working a lot. And I still wasn't making enough to nearly cover, this cost. Like I was, able to get some funding with from the National Abortion Federation, but I was like, it was panic. It was really panic the whole time. And also because I had to rely on so many different people to help me in accessing care, which I must say I'm very appreciative that was even something, I was able to do. I also felt like I ended up subjecting myself to a lot more stigma and a lot more harmful things than I would have liked to. But I didn't, of course, I didn't know. I didn't know that at that time. And so it was from the logistics of actually accessing the abortion to just, some of the many things that kind of came up along the way. It was a lot more of a challenge than it ever should have been.
Definitely. And I want to ask on that abortion stigma note, how can people fight abortion stigma?
Yeah. So one that like this training, this workshop, just having these conversations with each other within our communities and saying abortion, right? Like, a lot you might have heard this before, but people who are antis for whatever reason, they say abortion so much more than folks who are pro-abortion. We need to be saying it. It needs to be something that, becomes more normalized in conversation, because when we talk about it, we not only are able to normalize it and get more dialogue going, but we can share resources, and we can, things can become, more of common knowledge. And I definitely think it comes down to, of course, talking about it, and discussing it with the ones we love, and just, making it a point to try to destigmatize when we can. And when we, making destigmatization putting that at the forefront when we are having conversations like this.
And this is a big question, but I want to ask you this as we get close to time, because I think it could be, what does the future of abortion advocacy look like? What does the future of this work look like? Yeah.
Yes. Ooh, it does not end. So of course, we know here in Ohio, issue 1 has passed, but there is no, laws don't matter without access, right? As we can see, one of the first thing I always think of is this 24-hour waiting period. The fact that not only do you have to make time for 1 appointment, but 2, and that can, just be, there's so many barriers that can come into play with that. Funding. I think that, abortion clinics, not abortion clinics, yes, but also abortion funds. We need resources, and money needs to be given. We need money. They're very expensive. So I think definitely more clinics. We need more clinics. We need so much more resources, really. But also, I think hand in hand with that is, simultaneously that destigmatization work. Because again, when we talk about it, when we make it something that folks feel more comfortable sharing about, and it becomes more a part of our not everyday conversations, who knows, but I hope so. Once that happens, I think that changes are more likely to happen. And, I definitely think that I'm so grateful. I'm definitely glad that issue 1 did pass, but there's just so much more work to be done.
Issue
I
1 put
think
it in the
access
Ohio
is going to
State
be, is a
Constitution.
huge focus, access and destigmatization.
Thank you so much. Powerful word. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Also, everyone give a virtual round of applause for our amazing abortion storytellers.
They snap.
However you can. Thank you so much.
Oh, no,
we're gonna
snaps.
get back into the slides before we close out. All right. So next steps. Reproductive justice.
It's not a loophole for reproductive care. They solidified the right to an abortion in the Ohio State Constitution. Because remember, guys, Ohio's going red, according to conservatives. But they solidified the right to an abortion in the Ohio State Constitution.
One of the most important parts of it is that it is grassroots. It's community-based, which means that you, as a member of some community, can use this framework to impact people in your community. It really comes down to finding your place in any kind of abortion support work. And we're going to talk about this, and kind of support work in general. We're going to talk about this from that abortion angle. So when we're talking about increasing access to abortion, especially when we're talking about when we know that the state is not on our side, when we know that ANTI is not on our side. Oh, no, ASL, 1 second. Oh, wait a minute. Something I have to do, but can you see now? Okay, great. I'll show the sentence over. So when we're talking about increasing access to abortion, we're usually talking about attempts to build networks of care for each other, especially when we know that that legislation is not on our side, even when it is. Oh, okay. Well, I think we're both back. Okay, great. Sorry for delaying that. We're talking about building networks of care for each other when the systems are not working for us, right?
Part of community care is being in community. What does that sound like to you guys? Part of community care is being in community. What does that sound like? Pop quiz. It sounds like being part of the collective. It sounds like being the Borg. The collective. The Borg. The collective. The collective, i.e. the collective. Universal health care. Yes, it does. Indeed. Communist health care. Exactly.
And so we're going to hear from Dion from Be Quick once again.
And we need community care, because again, care, healing, getting our needs met, none of that is done in isolation. And as a collective, we're experiencing extreme levels of collective grief and confusion. Year 4, dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and having been abandoned by the government.
Wow.
Community care means showing up for one another, and like people, like individuals in our community showing up for one another and committing ourselves to that in a world where our elected officials don't, who say that they represent the people, do not. In a world where our healthcare systems fail us and serve as additional sites of violence for Black queer people. In a world where, people are demonized for drug use or criminalized for participating in the survival economy. Like community care holds space for all of this and says that people are still deserving of love and care and healing and resourcing. Part of community care is being in community. And for the people within our reach, showing up for them and helping them get their basic needs met, and developing networks where we can be interdependent, we can show up for one another, we can trade, you can do this, I can do this, how can we work together? And doing all of this outside of the state.
When they say doing this outside of the state, they don't mean it like libertarians mean it. They mean it outside of the capitalist state. I have seen some autonomy books and oh good. Oh great. Great, Tayton. A new nightmare. Love it.
Those who are most marginalized amongst us within our communities, like Black, queer, trans people, people who are disabled, poor people, and really cultivating accessibility where the most marginalized people amongst us can access resources and care and safety.
Look, this person is a they, them. I just love it. I have to say, I love it when we see something on a slide. I have you guys define the language for me, and then the socialists play a clip confirming that our interpretation of what they had on their slide was 100% correct. Bravo. Beautiful. I can't ask for more.
On that note, for many, like one aspect of this is just one of many aspects of kind of developing community care and community autonomy. For many Black queer people, having access to a Black midwife or doula is an ideal way to access a lot of kinds of reproductive care. For birth midwives
National
is
Black
a person who can
Douglas
help someone give
Association,
birth, and then
Doulas
doula can ensure that
Association.
someone going into
National Black Doulas Association. I wonder if they'll talk about abortion doulas.
the clinic has their birth plan followed and they're respected at all times. And in the same way, we have abortion doulas, which many doulas are full fraction, which means that they can cover any outcome of a pregnancy. But
It's
some
like
people
I'm a
specifically
prophet.
are right now, especially, are
I'm a
working
prophet of the
on
socialist.
supporting people access abortion care, supporting people through what that abortion experience is like, and kind of building community in that way. And we know that, like, historically, Black people have been pushed out of providing this kind of care, but especially now, people have a really big, like, reinvigorated interest in this, and groups like national groups like the National Black Doula Association and Roots Reproductive Justice on a local level, and so many others are kind of taking up the mantle on making sure that people can get the training that they need, people can get the support that they need, because doulas need community too, midwives need community too, and so
An abortion doula. Here's what an abortion doula does. And I wrote about this on my Substack. You can find it at carlin.substack.com. Just search for abortion doula and it'll come right up. There's an article called The Abortion Doulas. What an abortion doula does is when you're having so I learned about abortion doulas in the context of a self-managed at-home bathroom abortion in which they take the abortion pill and then they bleed their baby out into the toilet. So what an abortion doula does in that sense is they sit with the person as they are taking their abortion pills, they make them tea, they talk to them, they play music for them. They're with them to support them through the process of having a self-managed at-home bathroom abortion. And when the person having the abortion is sitting on the toilet, bleeding the baby out into the toilet, and this is not a little bit of blood. This is a lot of blood and clumps and all sorts of stuff. The abortion doula sits next to the person as they are bleeding their baby out into the toilet, and they comfort them, and they rub their back, and they hold their hand, and they talk them through it, and they make sure that everything is okay. And if they need like a drink or a snack, they go and get them the drink and the snack. And then after the abortion is over and they have bled their child out into the toilet, they guide the person who has had the abortion to the self-managed abortion shrine in which they literally worship themselves. And if you guys think I'm making any of this up, you can see the pictures of the self-managed in fact, let me just show you real quick. I'll fucking show you. Hang on. Abortion doula. If you go to my Substack, Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com, and you do a search for abortion doula, you'll find this article called The Abortion Doula. Yeah, I wish I was a guy. And in this article, I have photos of the self-managed bathroom abortion tour that I went on. And this is the woman who gave me the tour. And on her shirt are the images of the names of the abortion pills. So those are and if I had gotten, I got there really late in the day and I didn't get there soon enough to get my free t-shirt. But if I'd gotten there earlier in the day, I would have been able to get one of those t-shirts for free. And they walked us through the process of having an at-home bathroom abortion. And there's I'm not going to go through all of it, but here is the bathroom where you bleed your baby out into the toilet. And here is the sign that says an abortion doula for everyone having an abortion. And all these signs explain the process of having a self-managed at-home bathroom abortion. And then this is the self-worship abortion shrine. And we know it's a self-worship abortion shrine because this thing right here literally said, like people asked me, they were like, Carlin, are you sure that's not a shrine to worship the soul of the baby that you've just bled out into the toilet? And I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure, because this image right here literally talks about, like, this plate with the hands over the eyes. I don't remember exactly what it says, but I have a close-up image of it in another article, and it literally talks about worshiping the self. That's what that talks about. And so this is a literal abortion shrine. I sent all this over to Glenn Beck's team, and Glenn Beck's team didn't think this was important to cover. And I was a little bit disenchanted by that with Glenn Beck and his entire team, because I was like, I literally got you assholes photos of a fucking abortion shrine, talking about an abortion doula at an abortion conference at Hampshire College, and you don't think this is important for people to know about? Let me see if I can find, hang on. Pro-life. Because I wrote another article about this at the time. No, only on Actively Unwoke. This one. This has a close-up of that image of the shrine. Okay, so this right here, this woman with the hands over the eyes, on it it says, "Loving yourself is the greatest revolution." So this was a self-worship shrine after you have your at-home bathroom abortion, and no one in conservative media thought that this was important to cover. Because reasons. I'm just saying, I've been talking about this for a long time. No one listened, per usual. Anyway, I'm not bitter or anything. Let's get back to the presentation. All these self-professed, I'm fucking pro-choice, man. I'm not that pro-choice. All these self-professed pro-lifers, we've got to save the children. It's like, do you want to tell people about this? No. Okay, well.
The strategy of providing community care in this way has worked well for a lot of groups. A lot of what we've talked about here has been kind of skimmed over, but in the follow-up, we're going to provide a lot of resources relating to that kind of thing.
Why do I think they refused? That's a great question for Glenn Beck and his producers. I don't know.
Getting practical. As for applying this information, that of course is up to you. It's up to you to make that commitment, knowing what you can commit. But here are some starting tips. To start, give money. Woohoo! If you have a disposable income.
They told me, his producers told me they were going to put it in their newsletter at least, even if he didn't cover it on his show. And they never did. And there was a whole bunch of other stuff I gave them too. And I was like, like I said, that was the last time I ever reached out to Glenn Beck or his producers. And that made me so sad because I had a lot of respect for Glenn Beck. I really did. Excuse me. I had a lot of respect for Glenn Beck. And I do have a lot of respect for Glenn Beck because Glenn Beck does put his money where his mouth is. And I think that he means well. But I was really kind of shocked that they didn't cover it and they didn't tell their audience about it. And the only thing that I can think of is that the source of the information was inconvenient for them because I was at the point then when I was no longer a prop of the conservative establishment and I was no longer speaking the talking points that they told me to speak. And so I can only assume that they put more I think if the story had come from someone else, they would have covered it. But because I am literally the only person doing this right now, I'm the only person going undercover at events like this. I'm the only person getting this type of material that I know of. If people know of other people, tell me. Because Andy No isn't doing this. And that's no shade on Andy No. I think Andy No's fabulous, and I think he's done a lot of good work, but he doesn't do this. I can only assume that if the information came from one of their friendlies, they would have covered it in about half a second. And that makes me really sad because it just proves that none of these people actually care about the things that they claim to care about at all. It's really, it's so, I don't mean, like, let's just make it about me for a second. Let me work out some feelings. Like, it's so disillusioning to me. All of the stories that they know about that they refuse to cover because it doesn't come from a convenient source. Because if it came from one of their friends, it would be covered no problem. If it came from someone who was a darling of the conservative political establishment, it would be covered in a second. So they care more about the source of the story and whether or not they're propping up the convenient political narrative than they do about the story. Which is why they cover a lot of bullshit and nonsense, because it's not actually about the story, it's about the source of the story. It's really blackpilling. In a way, I'm glad conservatives, not chat so much, are ignoring a lot of this. I fear a lot of the socialist agenda would make them more authoritarian. I mean, that's a really great point, Dayton. That's a really great point.
Try and commit maybe 10%, maybe 5% of it to giving people who need it. Please think critically about who you're giving your money to. We are in giving season, as someone was saying in the chat. So every nonprofit, politician, and their mother will try and get your dollars, but please always ask questions about where the money is going to. If you're ever concerned or unsure about where the money is going, you can always ask if you're in an in-person event or send an email. For instance, if you ask Sam at the Abortion Fund of Ohio for, by chance, what percentage of donations actually go to funding abortions? She would reply, 100% of donations go to direct aid for people accessing abortions. And ideally, you'd say, amazing, here's a bunch of money for abortions, and then everyone would be like, woohoo, yippee. It's all important to check up on that stuff. Also, please try not to be afraid of giving.
Do you see PragerU covering any of this stuff? Why? Because my spiritual beliefs are inconvenient for PragerU. Because I don't ascribe to one of the Abrahamic religions. And so PragerU completely canceled me off of, like, I had like one of the top PragerU videos of 2022, but when PragerU found out that I don't adhere to Abrahamic religions, wiped off the internet, which I was actually grateful for because I was pretty much over it by that time. But don't tell me PragerU are the good guys. They're not the good guys. They're part of the political machine just like everyone else. We at PragerU believe in freedom of religion, but not that much freedom. Not so much freedom that you don't believe hell exists. That's just a step too far, except we believe that hell doesn't exist, but you're not to believe that hell doesn't exist because you're not Jewish, you're not Christian. You don't follow our belief system. All right. Fine.
Directly to individuals who need it, especially people in your community. I mean, yeah, that's what I'll say on that. Giving time, depending on the situation, you can give time to people or organizations. People need help more than ever, especially after kind of the initial fanfare of the fall of Roe has died down. So looking into organizations in your community and asking, how can I help out? Finding out what you have the time and energy to do is actually really important.
Tim Pool was lied to. I'll tell you exactly why Tim Pool doesn't like me. Tim Pool was lied about, like had someone lie to him about me, by the name of Carrie Smith, who I've covered extensively on this channel, because Carrie used to be friends with Tim Pool, and Carrie, basically was spewing bullshit in Tim Pool and Cassandra McDonald's ear about me, and basically Tim Pool thought I was an SJW. Tim Pool thinks I'm a woke SJW. Now Cassandra has actually come around, and Cassandra and I would consider Cassandra, like, I'm cool with Cassandra now. Cassandra and I beefed for years because Carrie Smith fucking lied about me. But Cassandra and I are actually cool now. Cassandra wants me to go on his show. Like, she's told me this several times, and I'm just like, I don't want to, because I don't want it to be a fight, and I don't think anyone would really listen to what I'm saying anyway. But no, she wants me on the IRL thing. I don't know. I do like Cassandra though. I've come to like really respect Cassandra. If I'm honest, Tim not so much. Tim, I don't have, like, part of my apprehension about this whole thing, and I know we're just like chit-chatting, this is almost over. Like, part of my apprehension about this whole thing is Tim doesn't fucking respect what I do. Tim thinks that the quartering is the best activist in the history of activists, and the quartering is going to save us all. And I mean, literally, Tim blocked me on Twitter for DMing him and saying there are better activists than the quartering, bro. And I was actually I wasn't referring to myself when I said that. But Tim doesn't believe that there's any better activist than the quartering. The quartering is the number one activist in the world, and therefore, I'm not joking. Like, Tim blocked me on Twitter for saying there are better activists to have on your show, and you really should do that. Maybe I said it in a little bit of an antagonistic way, because I was, quite frankly, really pissed that Tim was lifting up the quartering as like the greatest activist in the history of the world, when I'm like, bro. And I wasn't even talking about myself. And I'm not going to say who I was talking about, because I don't want to get them in trouble, but like, there are far better people that he could have, like, anyway, if Tim actually cared about changing culture, there are far better people that Tim could have lifted up that are not the fucking quartering. I'll tell you that. But Tim didn't want to hear that, and he blocked me on Twitter, and I know that, like, I like Cassandra, dude. I do. Like, I really come to respect her, but like, and I know you guys would like to see me on that show, but like, I just don't want to. Like, I don't want to interact with him. If he really thinks that the quartering is the greatest activist in the history of activists, then what the fuck did he and I actually have to talk about? That's just retarded. I don't even know what to say to something like that, you know? It's like, okay. So, I don't know. But I would like to play with Cassandra's monkeys, and I'm not even joking about that. This is like the only thing that I'm like, maybe, because I've never played with a monkey before, and I think that what she's doing is actually kind of cool. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Anyway, let's wrap this up.
Part of this. And we've discussed fighting stigma quite a bit, so we aren't going to go into too much detail, but to keep things brief, if you are a person who is able to say abortion, is able to speak out about restrictions on access, then you have the ability to become what I want to call the abortion friend, which means,
to be fair, I did also spill the beans on YouTube before Adam did about Tim fucking Lydia. Because I knew about that when it happened, because Adam told me and another person when that happened, and I didn't spill the bean for 2 years. After Adam fucking spilled it in a hotel room with me and Mike Harlow, like, that Tim had been fucking Lydia. I didn't spill it for 2 goddamn years, but Mike Harlow spread a rumor that I did spill it when he was the one that was fucking spilling it. And so I waited, and I was like 2 years, and I was like, and I was pissed off at Adam, and Tim had done something. You know what it was? It was when Tim didn't cover the Dawn Bulldog thing. in New Hampshire. And then Tim said that he didn't cover the Don Bulldog thing because no one sent him the full video when I had sent him the full video. And not only had I sent him the full video, I used every fucking connection I had to get Tim the full 10-minute video. You can go back on the channel. And when none of that worked, I actually did a live stream at like 2 a.m. where I played the full fucking video. I tagged Tim in it. I put Tim's name in it. We spanned him to high heaven with the full 10-minute video. And then Tim went on a show and said, no one sent me the 10-minute video. And I was so fucking pissed. I was so pissed that I was like, you know what, Tim? Fuck you. The reason that Adam was fired off of the show is because Tim was fucking Lydia. And then Adam covered it like 2 weeks later. Adam finally spilled the beans and confirmed that every single thing I said was true. And I kept that shit under wraps for 2 years. Even though I had Lydia accusing me on Twitter of spilling the beans, I had Adam accusing me because Mike Harlow was actually the one that did it. And Mike Harlow was the one running his fucking mouth. So I was like, I reached the point I was like, Tim can go fuck himself. Adam can go fuck himself. All of these people can go fuck themselves. I didn't do what I was. If they're going to blame me for spilling the beans anyway, I'm going to make a video saying that Tim was fucking Lydia. I'm sorry. And everyone knew. So that might be another reason Tim doesn't like me, which is like actually like a much more valid reason. But it's also just like, bro, like I don't take any of these people seriously. Anyway.
That when someone needs access to like reproductive healthcare, they know that they can go to you. They know that they can go to someone to have that need met.
Right, I kind of feel the same.
Ashamed and not being able to know where to go. That kind of thing really does build community. And big fundraising event coming
I wouldn't
up, so
do
if
it.
you're looking
Hang
for a
on.
place to give money.
No, absolutely no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not will this ever happen. And I'll tell you why. Because in order for me to present my case, I would have to play video clip after video clip after video clip after video clip after video clip. And if I can't do that, and we're talking hours and hours and hours of clips, and if I can't do that, then there's no fucking point. Because James Lindsay, who has a much bigger profile than me, would just come into that space and be like, trust me, bro, pinky swear, I promise. And he would rattle off all this, like, all these citations, and no one else, and he would win. He would win. If I am not allowed to show exactly the video I want to in the order that it needs to be shown in for people to understand it, it doesn't work. So no, I will never debate James Lindsay. I will never do it because there is no format possible. And I don't care if it's on Tim's show or someone else or like whatever. Like there is no format possible that allows me to actually sit down and teach the information without James Lindsay going full on debate, bro. Like it just wouldn't work. And so it would undermine what I'm doing. It would undermine what I'm offering because I would have to change what I'm doing in order to fit that format. And I would lose anyway. And the reason I would lose is because my profile isn't as high as James Lindsay's. No, he wouldn't, because I promise you, Tim dislikes me far more than he dislikes James Lindsay. I promise you. So no, that will literally never have. And also the fact that I'm a woman and I'm too fat and ugly to be on the internet, according to conservatives, would also play into this as well. And James Lindsay is just so based, bro. So no, there will never be a debate between James Lindsay and I. It will not happen. Like anyone who watches my content knows that James is wrong. Anyone that watches my content doesn't need me to debate James. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to use James's name in order to reach James's audience, to give them this information. But I'm never going to sit down with James. Absolutely not. Not unless it was 1000% on my terms and it was my format, and I could be able to play every single clip I want to play. It just won't happen.
Please. Okay, so that about wraps it up. Again, if you have more questions, if you have more thoughts, all that,
Exactly. I would be on
please share
defense the
them
entire
with your
time, and I'm
appropriate
not willing to do it.
channels.
And I don't care enough to do it. Like,
After today,
what would
we're
it
going
gain
to
me?
send
Nothing.
a link to this post-event survey. If you can scan the QR code, please do. It's really helpful for knowing what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want more of. We're also going to be sharing
All right.
all the
It looks
source.
like the presentation's over anyway. I'll just say this. Like, I actually think that if Sophie and I sat down, Sophie and I would actually have a more productive conversation than James Lindsay and I. I really do believe that. Sophie loves me. So I promise you, like, Sophie does not hate me. I really don't think she does. She gets annoyed at me, which she probably should. She probably should. But like Sophie does not hate me. Sophie gets more annoyed at me than anything else. I would love to. I've said to Sophie, you can come on my channel anytime. We'll have a good conversation. We'll treat you real well. Like, I would welcome a conversation. I would absolutely go on to talk with Sophie. 100%. Like, Sophie and I in the same room together, staring longingly into each other's eyes. Like, that's just good. That's just good content, bro. No, Sophie wouldn't block. Sophie, not only has Sophie not blocked me, Sophie unblocked me. Sophie blocked me after the socialism conference. And then I DM'd Sophie on Instagram and I was like, Sophie, I'm not going to throw you under the bus and make you look like a pedophile. I promise I'm really not going to do that. And Sophie responded and she was like, well, at least there's that. But you recorded people without them knowing. And I was like, Sophie, it was being recorded anyway. And then and Sophie and I had a good exchange. And then I said, Sophie, can you please unblock me on Twitter then? And she said, oh, I've already done it. Sophie loves me. Sophie is my internet girlfriend. She's totally in love with me. Just like Big Tech is in love with me, Sophie is also in love with me. Sophie just doesn't talk to me as much as Big Tech does. So, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. You can't win them all. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, Sophie has yelled. I once DM'd Sophie on Instagram and I was like, Sophie, you know you guys are winning, right? And Sophie got so pissed off. Sophie yelled at me for like 15 minutes over Instagram DM. I was like, Sophie, I'm literally telling you that you're winning. Anyway, all right, guys, that is all we have. We made it through. We had some good gossip at the end because I had an imperial beer. So you can't blame me for spilling the tea. I had a lot of beer, okay? I had beer. But tomorrow we're doing queer Marxism. We're actually going to be rewatching a presentation I watched probably a year and a half ago, but I want to watch it again because I think I'll get more out of it this time. It's going to be one from that Rabbles YouTube channel. It's a good presentation too. So we will be back tomorrow for Socialism Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to go drink some more beer now. And yeah, happy Friday, guys. Take care. We'll see you soon.